in both of the channels.
That is best. So actually there are more people watching it because there are some people watching it from YouTube as well.
Yes, correct.
All right. Okay, where's my...
And also some of the members of in this perspec, there are also some of the director of research center under the IPSK LIPI, Mr. Bai.
Okay, that is great.
Okay.
That is great.
YouTube-nya sudah mulai loh.
Okay, Dr. Yongmiji, you can check your presentation as well if you want to check the file using the share screen.
Dr. Jiyoungmi, she has connected, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I think she needs a little bit of time because it happened to me also. So we get connected,
Okay.
but they have to take us out to the speaker what you call channel.
Okay, because
So,
just send message using
Okay.
the room chat, Mr. Bai.
Okay.
Selamat pagi, Pak Umar Hadi. Good morning, Mr. Umar Hadi.
Selamat pagi, good morning. Annyeonghaseyo.
Ya,
Pagi Pak Dubes.
안녕하세요.
Oh, ada kawan saya tuh Pak Heri Yugaswara.
Wah, kenal juga, Pak.
Selamat pagi Pak Umar. Sudah lama tidak ketemu ya.
Nama Kang Heri.
Pak Esto, Kang.
Alhamdulillah.
Ini Dr. Yongmei Ji already joined with us.
Kita ada senior Pak Umar, Bu Nuke juga dari Unpad ini.
Alhamdulillah. Ika Unpad.
Ika Unpad.
Kami baru dilantik jadi itu anggota Dewan Pakar sama Bu Ira itu.
Hebat.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Dr. Yongmiji, you can check your PPT file. You can check using the share screen if you want.
So can you hear me okay now?
Yes, very clear.
Yeah, the voice is clear.
Okay.
김민수 소장님, 안녕하세요. 배성훈입니다.
네, 안녕하세요. 잘 보이세요?
네, 잘 보입니다. 잘 들리고 잘 보입니다, 소장님.
잘 보이시죠?
네, 잘 보입니다.
All good, all good.
Everything good. 지금 김은규 교수님도 같이 연결되어 계십니다, 소장님.
네, 안녕하세요. 반갑습니다.
반갑습니다.
So I could see that there are almost 400 people have joined in to webinar. Okay, that is very encouraging. And then now okay. Yeah, I think we're ready to start on time, right?
Yes, we are waiting the chairman of LIPI, Mr. Bai.
Okay.
Agak close up.
Pak Kepala sudah gabung.
Okay. Indah, MC, you can start now.
Oh, no. Can you give us a little bit more minute, a little time? Because President of Korea Foundation and Ambassador
I see.
Park Tae-sung hasn't been connected.
Okay, let me know.
Yes.
For all the panelists and participants.
No.
Okay, we will begin in shortly.
How about the ambassador already online, Mr. Bai?
Ready.
Yes, right.
Okay.
Very good morning, all of them.
Very good morning, ambassador. Indah, can you start now?
Pak Handoko.
Pak Handoko? Pak Handoko? Are you ready, Pak Handoko?
Hang on.
I need to go to his room.
Pak Handoko. Hang on. Pak Handoko, can you hear me?
My president from the Korea Foundation, he has joined in, Dr. Gun Lee.
Okay.
Good morning, Dr. Gun Lee.
Morning.
Okay.
이사장님 마이크 꺼져
Okay.
계십니다. 네.
Everyone already joined. You MC can start now.
Okay,
Yes.
for all panelists and participants of the international webinar Enhancing Indonesia-South Korea Connectivity, please be prepared. We are about to begin. Okay, His Excellency Ambassador of Indonesia to South Korea, Bapak Umar Hadi, His Excellency Ambassador of South Korea to Indonesia, Mr. Park Tae-sung, the Honorable Chairman of LIPI, Indonesian Institute of Sciences, Dr. Laksana Triandoko, the President of Korea Foundation, President Gun Lee, the Director of Korea Foundation in Jakarta Office, Director Bae Sung-won, the Deputy for Social Science and Humanities of LIPI, Professor Dr. Trinuka Pujastuti, the representatives from Indonesian ministries and institutions, as well as representatives from South Korea, the speakers, moderator, and all distinguished participants. Selamat pagi, good morning, annyeonghaseyo manaso panggapsmita. My name is Indah on behalf of Indonesian Institute of Sciences. It is my pleasure to welcome every one of you to the international webinar Enhancing Indonesia-South Korea Connectivity, organized by the Deputyship of Social Science and Humanities of LIPI in collaboration with Korea Foundation. This webinar is conducted virtually by Zoom webinar, and it is also live in official YouTube channel of LIPI. And for the participants in Zoom webinar, I would like to ask you all to please kindly fill the attendance form that we will share in the chat room later, and in that way you will get an e-certificate after this webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, this webinar will discuss the current dynamics and policy challenges related to the exchanging of goods, capital, and socio-culture between Indonesia and South Korea, since both countries have shared bilateral relationship in various factors, not to mention how Indonesian people, especially millennials, enjoy the spread of Korean wave, includes K-pop music, K-drama, K-food, and K-beauty. Therefore, on 25 November 2019, both governments have made an important milestone in bilateral economic cooperation by establishing Indonesia-Korea Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, IKCEPA. And this international webinar is part of the initial program to establish Indonesia-Korea Research Group in Deputyship of Social Science and Humanities of LIPI, as well as to strengthen networking, research cooperation, and collaboration among researchers on Indonesia-South Korea related issues. And ladies and gentlemen, this webinar will be divided into 4 sessions. The first session, there will be opening and welcoming remarks by the chairman of LIPI and the president of Korea Foundation. And the second session is congratulatory remark by His Excellency Ambassador of South Korea to Indonesia and His Excellency Ambassador of Indonesia to Korea. And for the third session, our main agenda is presentation and discussion. And for the last session, there will be closing remarks by the Director of Korea Foundation in Jakarta Office and the Deputy for Social Science and Humanities of LIPI. Before we begin on the first agenda, ladies and gentlemen, please prepare for the playing of the national anthem of Indonesia, followed by the national anthem of the Republic of Korea. Okay, for all participants, now here are the national anthem of the Republic of Korea. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, for the first session, now I would like to invite the chairman of LIPI to deliver an opening remark. For Dr. Laksana Trihandoko, please, the time is yours.
Oke, terima kasih. Thank you very much. The Excellencies, Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia in Seoul, Bapak Umar Hadi, also the Ambassador of the Republic of Korea in Jakarta, Mr. Park Tae-sung, and the President of Korea Foundation, Dr. Gun Lee. Distinguished speakers, at least as I can see, we have Dr. Santo, Bapak Santo Darmo Sumarto from our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Republic of Indonesia. Also Dr. Yung Mi Ji, the CEO of the Institute Pasteur Korea and Special Representative for Health Diplomacy, Korea Foundation. Also we have Professor Andrew Kim from the International Studies at Korea University, and my colleague, Bapak Nanto Srianto, researcher at Research Center for Political Studies, LIPI. And also all respected webinar participants, very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera, salam sehat untuk kita semua. Salam, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. So, it is a great pleasure for me on behalf of LIPI to welcome you all to this international webinar. And first of all, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the Deputy Chairman for Social Sciences and Humanities LIPI, Ibu Nuke, and also Korea Foundation for organizing this international webinar today. So actually this event has proven our awareness at LIPI to contribute more on strengthening the relations between Indonesia and international partners, in particular between Indonesia and the Republic of Korea. So this event is very timely in regard to follow up the success of Indonesia-Korea Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, we call it as IK-CEPA, already signed on, if I'm not wrong, on December last year. Yeah? And the webinar is going to discuss the enhancing Indonesia-South Korea connectivity, a theme that is very, very relevant to address our current condition and to initiate real program for the longer-term cooperation, in particular through research and scientific activities, hopefully. Yeah. So beyond the economic and international political strategic position, actually Indonesia and Korea, both countries, have also very, very high potential and on socio-cultural exchange, including research and science. And as already mentioned by the MC, Master of Ceremony today, that the spread of Korean waves in this decade, such as K-pop, K-movies, and so on, K-foods, K-beauty, and so on, are just real examples how the Korean culture has been accepted widely, in particular among younger generation in this country, in Indonesia. So, according to the study conducted by our Research Center for Society and Culture last year, during the COVID-19 pandemic, while staying at home, watching Korean drama was one of the most favorite activities among Indonesians. So I can also tell you that surrounding area of LIPI headquarters in Jakarta, and nearby my office right now, is also very, very well known as the Korean region. Previously, long time ago, it was known as the Japanese region, but now it's becoming the Korean regions, since you can find almost all the things related to Korea. From food, so even we have Korean supermarket, restaurants, and also beauty salon or even barber shop. So, and personally, as a scientist, I'm very, very familiar with South Korea, since I visited many times, in particular Seoul, including my term as a research scientist at Yonsei University almost 20 years ago. It's already quite a long time ago. So, all respected participants, as the chairman of LIPI, I would like to take this opportunity, in this occasion, to invite Korea Foundation to expand your network in Indonesia through LIPI. LIPI is the oldest and the largest research institution in Indonesia. LIPI has been established, not LIPI, but that time has been established more than 200 years ago. Started from Bogor Botanical Garden during the Dutch colonial era. So more importantly, we are also the only research institutions which covers very broad spectrum, from theoretical physics, I am a theoretical physicist, to political studies. Under the management of LIPI, we have 31 research centers in the fields of ranging from life sciences, earth sciences, engineering sciences, beside the social sciences and humanities. So LIPI is very happy to have the Korea Foundation and connecting people and bridging Indonesia with Korea to promote global friendship through international exchange activities following the mission and vision of Korea Foundation, as I learned. So in my understanding, it is very unfortunate currently that Korea Foundation has no partner yet in Indonesia. Even Indonesia is the largest country in this region. So again, it is very timely that LIPI has just established several schemes to promote exchange activities and also researchers mobility, including the research assistantship, visiting scholar, visiting professor, and also postdoctoral, starting from this year. And all schemes are, I would like to inform you that all schemes are open for Indonesian and also for foreigners. Of course, including the Korean foreigners, the Korean scholars. We have also by research program for Indonesian students to pursue PhD study at local or global universities. And we are now under discussion with some of Korean universities to let our by research students to spend some of their time to get the global perspective with Korean universities. So I do believe we can combine the existing schemes in both sides. Yeah, either we already have at LIPI or maybe at the Korea Foundation to encourage more exchange activities between both countries at grassroots level, in particular between the scholars. So for your information, LIPI also opens all of our research infrastructure to various stakeholders in Indonesia, including the academics and also industries from private sector. So in this regard, now LIPI is becoming one of the most important research infrastructure provider in this country. Therefore, by nature, I do believe that LIPI so far has involved many academics and young students from local universities to conduct research activities in many fields in all of our research centers. And on the other hand, LIPI has also organized the largest various youth science competitions in half a century ago to nurture future scientists from younger generation. Yeah, actually, I'm one of the alumni of the LIPI Youth Science Competitions, more than 25 years ago. And then concerning those background, I do believe LIPI would be an appropriate partner and the hub of Korea Foundation and Indonesia and the region. Not only the Indonesia, Indonesia, but also the surrounding countries, for instance, within the ASEAN region. On top of that, and Korea Foundation may find strong support from our integrated research on social sciences and humanities to enhance understanding of Korea and also at the same time to promote mutual beneficial relationship and friendship between Indonesia and Korea through bilateral exchange activities at grassroots level among the scholars between both countries. And maybe also we can involve multilateral relationships involving surrounding countries in the region. So ladies and gentlemen, finally, before concluding my opening speech, hereby I formally open this webinar and wishing you a successful and fruitful discussion during the webinar, and just stay healthy and safe. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Santi Santi Om. Terima kasih. Thank you very much. I pass the floor back to Mbak Indah.
Terima kasih banyak Bapak Handoko. And now I would like to invite Dr. Lee as the President of Korea Foundation for his welcoming remarks. For Dr. Lee, please.
Thank you. Good morning, distinguished guests, friends from all over the world. As President of the Korea Foundation, it is my privilege to welcome you all to the 2021 Korea Foundation webinar. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to LIPI for organizing this meaningful event as part of the Korea project, which the Korea Foundation is very proud to support. I also would like to thank all of our distinguished speakers for joining this dialogue to share their outstanding experience and vision with us. Thank you to Dr. Santo Darmosmarto, Directorate General of Asia Pacific and African Affairs, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Nanto Sirianto, researcher at LIPI, Dr. Youngmi-ji, Chief Executive Officer, Institute Pasteur Korea, and Korea Foundation Special Representative for Health Diplomacy, Professor Andrew Eun-gi Kim of Korea University, and to our ambassadors, His Excellency Umar Hadi and His Excellency Park Tae-sung. Today's webinar, Enhancing Indonesia-South Korea Connectivity, co-hosted by the Korea Foundation and LIPI, has been designed to generate productive discussions and an exchange of ideas. Through this, we hope to improve mutual understanding between our two countries and to strengthen bilateral cooperation. Since its establishment 30 years ago, the Korea Foundation has consistently extended support to Korea-related academic research. As the relationship between Korea and Indonesia grows broader and stronger, the Korea Foundation's goals include invigorating Korea-related research in Indonesia and strengthening Indonesia-Korea academic ties in collaboration with prominent Indonesian research centers like LIPI. Distinguished speakers, dear colleagues and friends, ever since the establishment of diplomatic ties in 1963, relations between Indonesia and South Korea have grown rapidly in many fields, from diplomacy to economic and cultural sectors. Our cooperation increased in scale and importance as our countries elevated our bilateral relationship into a special strategic partnership in 2017. On November 25, 2019, both governments reached an important milestone in bilateral economic cooperation by establishing the Indonesia-Korea Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, or IK-SEPA, intended to foster an even stronger economic bond. Along with growing economic ties between our two countries, there are other areas in which we have been able to foster exchange. For example, as mentioned by previous speakers, there is the growing popularity of the Korean wave, including K-pop, K-drama, K-beauty, and Korean cuisine in Indonesia and around the world, particularly among the millennial generation. And in the midst of COVID-19, our two countries can share with and learn from one another in countering the onslaught of the pandemic. Friends and colleagues, in closing, I would like to once again express my deep gratitude to LIPI for co-organizing this webinar, and to all our invited experts and guests for coming together here and now. In particular, my appreciation goes out to all of our scholars and practitioners for your devotion, passion, and expertise as you help build an even better future for Indonesia-Korea relations. I look forward to this webinar serving as a part of the initial program to establish the Indonesia-Korea Research Group in IPSK LIPI, building a bridge to strengthen research cooperation and collaboration on Indonesia-Korea related issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kenli. And now for the next agenda, please meet His Excellency Ambassador of Indonesia to South Korea, Bapak Umar Hadi. For Bapak Umar Hadi, please, the time is yours.
Good morning. Good morning, Dr. Lee. Selamat pagi, Pak Handoko. My dear friend, Ambassador Park, how are you? Ibu Nuke. So good morning, everybody. I wish everybody good health. And we start this week with a new spirit of can-do spirit. Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in a very exciting moment in human history. Advances in science and technology have made human being the most powerful creature on Earth. Colonizing Mars, space mining, space tourism are now simply a matter of engineering and financing. Defying age, even death, is now a mere technical issue. Autonomous machines and self-learning algorithms have given a whole new meaning to humans' yearning for efficiency. And yet, we are not sure about what kind of future that artificial intelligence, bioengineering, and nanotechnology, and their convergence will bring about. It seems that no one can predict what will happen in the next 30 years. Are we going to become victim of our own success? Will humanity thrive or become obsolete? The past year, how we are grappling with the COVID-19 pandemic has given us a clue about humankind's vulnerability, that is politics. In terms of science and technology, we have been very successful in handling the pandemic. Scientists have identified the virus, developed the vaccines, and come up with the new therapeutic drugs in an unprecedented time. Digital technology has been exponentially accelerated to help both stemming the spread of the virus and cushioning adaptation in our daily activities. However, politics have failed. I repeat, politics have failed to provide us with global leadership to address this truly global issue. Countries tend to adopt me-first policies, shut down their borders, and glorify vaccine nationalism. Global institutions have been struggling to come up with global strategy and action plan to stop the virus. Global economy is left unattended. The so-called winners are left unchecked, while losers are left behind. Arguably, a coherent policy for economic recovery at the global level will not be coming up very soon. What started as a public health crisis has turned into a global economic calamity. This adds tremendous pressures to political stability in many countries. Authoritarian rules are on the rise. Democracies are in retreat. And this situation doesn't help the already deteriorating world order. Are we on the verge of a new age of chaos? Maybe yes, hopefully no. But one thing is very clear. We need global leadership. We need collective and responsible global leadership. When we eventually survive this current crisis, we need meaningful propulsion in the way we organize humanity and global cooperation. We need innovations in politics as rigorous as those in science and technology. We need a clear vision for the future that embraces all humankind. Leadership does matter. And I believe Indonesia and South Korea, with their special strategic partnership, can provide such leadership. We can lead by example, by initiative. And I congratulate LIPI and Korea Foundation for this initiative, because this is one way we do our special strategic partnership. Thank you very much.
Terima kasih. Thank you so much, His Excellency Ambassador Bapak Umar Hadi. And now I gladly invite His Excellency Ambassador Mr. Park Tae-song as the Ambassador of South Korea to Indonesia. For Mr. Park Tae-song, please.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning. Selamat pagi. 안녕하세요. and Chairman Laksana Tri Handoko of LIPI, Lembaga Ilmu Pengetahuan Indonesia, and President Ligon of KF Korean Foundation. Thank you very much for successfully co-hosting today's webinar. Personally, I'm very pleased to see my good friend, Ambassador Umar Hadi, and I very enjoy his insightful remarks under the COVID-19 crisis. It is my great honor to have this opportunity to discuss Korea-Indonesia relations with a prominent institute, Korea Foundation and LIPI. I expect this webinar to serve as a significant moment to elaborate our partnership and to determine the direction of further cooperation between our two countries in the future. Indonesia, as you know, the biggest economy in Southeast Asia region and a leading member country of ASEAN, is a key partner for new southern policy of the Korean government. This is evident in how our bilateral relationship was elaborated to the level of special strategic partnership following the state visit of President Moon Jae-in to Indonesia in 2017. On the basis of close diplomatic relations, the economic ties between Korea and Indonesia are rock solid, and we are strengthening strategic cooperation in the fields of trade, investment, and industries. Last year, we had a signing event for Korea-Indonesia CEPA, Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, and we are awaiting for ratification process from both parliaments. Korea rose to the fourth largest investor to Indonesia in the first quarter 2020, and following this, Korea and Indonesia continues to strengthen strategic cooperation in various industries such as electric vehicle ecosystem. I firmly believe that this will put a stepstone on industrial innovation and climate change response of Indonesia. Another good cooperation case between two countries is the close cooperation in the health and medical front in response to the COVID-19 crisis. Korea has collectively provided $10 million worth of disinfection supplies and assistance program for Indonesia's response to the COVID-19. Moreover, to support economic activity during pandemic, we agreed to TCA, Travel Corridor Arrangement, which streamlined entry procedures for essential business personnel. Currently, Korea and Indonesia are collaborating to develop COVID-19 vaccine and medicines to overcome the pandemic. I personally believe human-to-human interchange is almost important in development of bilateral relationship. More particularly, it is crucial that the young generation responsible for the future of our nation advance in understanding each other and promote friendship via cultural, social, and human exchanges. There are approximately 25,000 Korean residents in Indonesia and 40,000 Indonesian residents in Korea, which forms one of the largest foreign community in both countries. More than 600,000 Korean and Indonesian visit each country every year. As a Korean ambassador, I sincerely appreciate that there is a growing interest and demand of Korean culture, such as K-pop, K-drama, and K-food among Indonesian young generation, and that many Indonesians favor Korea as a country of sahabat seperti saudara kandung, that is, true friends like brothers and sisters. A Korean consulate will opening in the first half of this year in Bali, which will further support human exchange and tourism between our two countries. Once again, I extend my heartfelt congratulations for the 2021 KFLP webinar. I look forward to the numerous constructive and fruitful discussions regarding bilateral ties between Korea and Indonesia today. Thank you very much. Terima kasih. 감사합니다.
Thank you so much for His Excellency Ambassador of South Korea to Indonesia. And now, please may I invite all the panelists to please turn on the camera because we will have a photo session. I will count 1, 2, 3, and the host please take the picture. Is everyone ready?
I think Pak Santo not yet. Pak Santo?
He's on the meeting.
Okay, thank you. I will count 1, 2, 3, okay? 1, 2, 3. One more time. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you so much for all the panelists for the photo session. And before we move to the main agenda, here I will present a short video about LIPI and the Korea Foundation.
Berawal dari cita dan asa untuk membangun negeri, memberikan segenap rasa dan tenaga untuk menghasilkan pemikiran terbaik bagi negeri tercinta, kami ada untuk Indonesia. Mewujudkan diri sebagai Lembaga Ilmu Pengetahuan Indonesia yang andal, profesional, inovatif, dan berintegritas dalam pelayanan untuk mewujudkan visi Presiden dan Wakil Presiden. Indonesia Maju yang berdaulat, mandiri, dan berkepribadian berlandaskan gotong royong. LIPI memiliki berbagai pusat penelitian tersebar di seluruh Indonesia yang berada di bawah kepala LIPI, Deputi Ilmu Pengetahuan Hayati, Deputi Ilmu Pengetahuan Kebumian, Deputi Ilmu Pengetahuan Teknik, Deputi Ilmu Pengetahuan Sosial dan Kemanusiaan, Deputi Jasa Ilmiah dan SDM Pendukung Iptek di bawah Sekretariat Utama LIPI. LIPI berperan dalam proses penyusunan dan kelahiran berbagai regulasi dan kebijakan pemerintah terkait aspek ekonomi, politik, sosial, dan budaya. Selain itu, LIPI juga mengelola data dan timbangan ilmiah dalam rangka konservasi keanekaragaman hayati. Menerbitkan tanda pengenal unik publikasi ilmiah terbitan berkala, membuat repositori ilmiah skala nasional, dan memiliki kewenangan sebagai pembina Jabatan Fungsional Peneliti Nasional, serta melaksanakan proses pengukuhan profesor riset di Indonesia. Kini, LIPI juga mendukung percepatan penanganan COVID-19, baik melalui riset berupa kajian maupun produk, maupun pengembangan SDM melalui program Indonesia Memanggil. Untuk mendukung riset, LIPI memiliki 5 kebun raya sebagai pusat konservasi flora ex situ. 2 museum yang memiliki koleksi flora, fauna, dan kesejarahan alam Indonesia, Indonesia Culture Collection yang menyimpan koleksi mikroorganisme terbesar di Indonesia, infrastruktur riset strategis, dan beberapa pusat berskala internasional, yaitu Asia Pacific Center for Eco-Hydrology atau APCE. LIPI telah menghasilkan hasil riset yang berkualitas dan bermanfaat bagi masyarakat. Meliputi keanekaragaman hayati, lingkungan dan maritim, ketahanan pangan, pertanian, dan peternakan, kesehatan dan farmasi, material maju, energi, teknologi, informasi dan komunikasi, pertahanan dan keamanan, dinamika sosial, kemanusiaan dan kebudayaan, kebencanaan, inovasi teknologi dan pendayagunaan iptek, pelayanan, pengujian dan pembinaan ilmiah, serta peningkatan kualitas SDM iptek. Kerjasama keilmuan LIPI dalam negeri meliputi kerjasama penelitian, lisensi teknologi, pengembangan, aplikasi dan komersialisasi hasil penelitian, kerjasama non-penelitian, dan konsultasi kepakaran LIPI. Sedangkan kerjasama luar negeri, LIPI melakukan joint research, workshop, pertukaran peneliti, dan beasiswa mancanegara, selain aktif menjadi anggota dan focal point di berbagai organisasi internasional. Melalui kolaborasi bersinergi, menghasilkan riset yang berkualitas, LIPI terus memberikan manfaat nyata, kontribusi berarti, dan turut mewujudkan cita dan asa membangun negeri kita tercinta, Indonesia.
That was the video profile of LIPI, and now here are the video profile of Korea Foundation.
Public diplomacy, connecting people, bridging the world. The KF is at the core of these efforts. Years of experience bridging people to people and Korea with the world has fostered our know-how in the field of international cooperation. The KF has established professorships in 91 universities in 16 countries, invited over 11,000 influential figures and future generation leaders from abroad to Korea, installed Korea rooms in 28 world-class museums in 10 countries, and supported 7,200 people in Korea-related research through our KF fellowships. Since its establishment in 1991, the KF has served as Korea's door to the world. With our headquarters in Jeju, Seoul Global Center, ASEAN Culture House in Busan, and multiple foreign branches, the KF, designated as Korea's official public diplomacy institution, strives to disseminate correct knowledge and information on the Republic of Korea to the global community. The KF fosters Korea experts across the world with the goal of helping the global community better recognize and understand the Republic of Korea. We work to expand global Korean studies research infrastructure by establishing Korean studies professorships abroad and by sending visiting professors to enable more young people to learn about Korea at renowned world universities and research institutions. We also promote in-depth research on Korea by supporting in-country studies by Korea experts from around the world through our Rising Researcher Support programs. Additionally, we host workshops for educators, bringing experts in humanities and social studies to Korea so that they can practice Korean, strengthen their educational abilities on Korea-related issues, and engage in networking. The KF aims to establish a leading role for Korea within the global knowledge community and strives to expand a pro-Korean network in the international community. In order to do this, we invite distinguished figures from around the world to Korea and engage in a next-generation Leaders Invitation program. Guests come from countries with which we hope to enhance our relationship and establish a firm human foundation that will better connect Korea with the world. By supporting studies on Korea through renowned policy-oriented research programs, we are also able to promote research by the international community on core issues related to Korea. And by hosting bilateral or multilateral forums, we strive to enable the international community to sympathize with and understand Korea's core policies. The KF provides opportunities for global growth for Korean talents through the Global Challengers Program. Internship programs that take place on the international stage act as the foundation for our talents to learn a global touch and acquire expertise. Public diplomacy connects communities with the world through the soft power of public citizens and the private sector. As a Korean public diplomacy institution, we seek to boost the public's diplomatic power. The Korea Central Asia Cooperation Forum Secretariat, whose importance was recognized by the President of Korea during his tour of the Central Asian countries in April 2019, continues to build a future-oriented relationship with the countries of Central Asia. Korean art and culture are introduced through the Korea Festival. We bring Korean culture to diverse parts of the world through performances and exhibitions that encompass tradition and modernity, as well as through colorful art and cultural programs. Furthermore, we increase awareness of Korean culture for guests at foreign museums by hosting programs to establish Korea rooms. We produce and publish foreign language magazines and publications, including our quarterly magazine, Koreana, to share Korea with the world. And we provide continuous support for Korean media by hosting special screenings of Korean films through Korean diplomatic missions abroad or at foreign international film festivals. The KF pursues mutual cultural exchange between the Republic of Korea and foreign countries in order to provide opportunities for Korean citizens to experience diverse foreign cultures. Additionally, the ASEAN Culture House actively hosts cultural and people-to-people exchanges and academic activities, serving as an international platform for Korea and ASEAN to better know one another. The KF is proud to stand with you as a professional public diplomacy institution working to raise the status of the Republic of Korea and to serve as a leader into the future by setting global agendas. Korea Foundation.
Ladies and gentlemen, moving right along, now we will start the discussion session. This session will discuss the range of topics in politics, economy, social, and culture issues related to Indonesia and South Korea. The speakers are not only researchers from the Deputyship of Social Science and Humanities of LIPI, but also representatives from Indonesian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and scholars from Korea. For the discussion session, please meet the moderator, Agus Syarif Hidayat, PhD, a researcher from Research Center for Economics of LIPI. Let me give you a brief introduction about Dr. Agus. Dr. Agus is a senior researcher with over 15 years experience of working in a research government institutions, passionate academics, and experienced at various international agencies. He is skilled in economic policy, international economic, qualitative and quantitative research, economy data analysis, public policy, and small-medium enterprises. Dr. Agus had been a consultant at People's Representatives Council of Indonesia for 2008 until 2013. He was also a consultant at Australia-Indonesia Partnership for Decentralization in 2011 until 2013 and been a consultant at the World Bank in 2010. And now for Dr. Agus, the session is yours.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Indah, for introducing me as the moderator for this international webinar. Honorable guests, distinguished speakers, all respected participants, a very good morning to you all. So it is my great honor to become a moderator of this event discussing enhancing Indonesia-South Korea connectivity. So to begin with, I would like to briefly explain the context why the issue of enhancing connectivity between Indonesia and Korea is a very crucial issue. So a formal diplomatic cooperation between these two nations has been actually developed for nearly 50 years. In the regional context, as mentioned before, that Indonesia and South Korea are equally active in ASEAN-Korean FTA and East Asia Summit. And as mentioned by Chairman of LIPI and also by His Excellency Korean Ambassador in his opening speech, that people-to-people connectivity through K-pop, K-drama, K-foods, K-beauty is also becoming increasingly popular in Indonesia, especially in the millennial generations. Unfortunately, in my view, both countries have not optimally capitalized these strategic ties to reach the optimum level of cooperation, including to take part in the collective global leadership in contributing to the combating COVID-19 pandemic, as becoming concerns of His Excellency Ambassador Umar Hadi in his speech. In the bilateral economic issues, for instance, while there is increasing in the FDI inflow from South Korea to Indonesia, in terms of trade and tourism visit, South Korea's position has yet to achieve top 5 of Indonesian main partners. So we have a high expectation that Indonesia-Korea Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement would become a turbo engine to accelerate the connectivity enhancement in the multidimensional cooperation, including economic, tourism and culture, science and technology, industry 4.0 technology, health technology, human resource development, and others. And having closer and stronger connectivity between these two nations would not only benefit Indonesia and South Korea, but also would coloring the dynamics of cooperation in the regional context of ASEAN. For instance, to the development of regional and global value chain and cultural exchange program. Therefore, to optimize the benefits of this partnership, the questions are, what are the existing obstacles and future challenges both nations will face in the implementation of the partnership? What and how the concrete action should be prepared for dealing with these challenges, including to address the development issues in the post-COVID-19 pandemic. And yes, for sure, we will hear the answers for these questions from our invited speakers. So ladies and gentlemen, we are delighted to introduce you our 4 distinguished speakers. We have 2 from Indonesia, consisting of a bright senior researcher, Mr. Nanto. Hello, Mr. Nanto. How are you doing today?
Fine. Thank you, Mas Agus.
Thank you. And we have also a senior diplomat, Dr. Santo Darmo Sumarto. He's a director for East Asia Pacific Affairs, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Unfortunately, Dr. Santo was, he was scheduled to become the first presenter and attending this morning sessions. However, he is suddenly called by the minister for very urgent meeting. So he will be joining us later on, probably about 11. Okay. And we have 2 other prominent scientists from South Korea. Let me greet Dr. Yong Mi Ji. Dr. Ji, how are you?
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Ji. And then we have also a Professor Andrew Anji Kim from International Studies Korea University. Good morning, Professor Andrew. Hello, Professor Andrew. Are you with us?
Yes, I could. Okay. You could hear me, right?
Yes, yes, very clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, we have another speaker from ASEAN Secretariat, that's supposed to join this event. However, due to unexpected reason, he cannot join. But never mind. And then before entering the first presentation, let me read the guideline or the rule for this webinar. So could you please display? Yeah, so the webinar will be divided into 3 sessions. First is presentation from the speakers, and then we will have question and answer session, and then closing statements. And the allocated time for each speakers is maximum 20 minutes. And then for the participants, you are most welcome to deliver a question. And then we suggest you to write the question concisely in the Q&A feature located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So please write your question format in the name _ organization and question. You may write the questions either in English or in Bahasa Indonesia or even in Korean. Most welcome. Okay? And then, certificate will be provided to all participants who fill in the attendance list and attend webinar until finish. Okay, for the first presenter, I would like to invite Mr. Nanto Trianto. Are you with us, Pak Nanto? Okay.
Yeah, Pak Agus.
So, thank you. This is Mr. Nanto CV. So, the committee, could you please display Mr. Nanto CV? Yeah. Mr. Nanto will talk about the dynamics of Indonesia-Korea bilateral relations, some strategic issues to be concerned. So in his professional experiences, he's currently a senior researcher at Center for Political Studies, LIPI. He's also the vice manager of National Priority Research for LIPI, and also member of editorial board for several international journals. He finished his study in the international studies from the University of Queensland, Australia, in 2015. And his research interest is covering Indonesia's foreign policy, regional dynamic, and middle power approach in international relations. So, Mr. Nanto, time is yours. 20 minutes, please.
Okay, terima kasih Pak Gus. Thank you very much for this opportunity, distinguished guest, Head of LIPI, Bapak Laksana Trihandoko, President of Korean Foundation, Excellency Ambassador Umar Hadi, Ambassador Park, Ibu Nuka, and my other senior colleague in LIPI. Thank you very much for this opportunity. As an opening speaker, I would like to introduce my ideas behind this presentation. That actually it is based on research by the foreign policy research group in Center for Political Studies. So some of the insights coming from the previous research and also my experience in joining the MICTA session between the MICTA is middle power coalition group consists of South Korea, Indonesia, Australia, and Mexico, and Turkey as well. So my ideas of this presentation slightly different from the proposed title of the committee. So I would like to share my PPT. Okay, can you see my presentation? Is it great?
Yeah.
Okay, so my presentation is slightly changed from the initial title proposed by the committee. I would focus on directly to the middle power issue between the two countries, since Indonesia and South Korea is an aspiring middle power country. I think this term could be a bridging issue between the two nations, and we can build a strategic cooperation around the issue. So basically, some of the ideas is, as I said before, that coming from our previous research about the Indonesian foreign policy as a middle power, and also my involvement in MIKTA and several discussions with MIKTA countries in Indonesia, in Turkey, and other places. So basically, my presentation is gonna consist of three big parts, like the background of bilateral relations and historical base of middle powerness between the two countries, and the final part is what I conclude to some economic connection between the Indonesia and Korea. So let's start to the background. As just mentioned by Pak Agus, Dr. Agus, that Indonesia and South Korea started its formal relations in 1966. During that time, we have built consular relations. But actually, I want to share the legacy of history between the two nations that started before the formal relations. I would like to mention that there is a story of Korean fighters who support Indonesian independence during the revolutionary era in 45 up to 49. During that time, Indonesia has aims to become part of the international society, and the South Korean fighters have joined, and then the recent historical records show that this is part of the earliest people-to-people relation between the two nations. And also after that, during the Korean War, there was Mokhtar Lubis who reported the event, the Korean War, and he published the book Catatan Perang Korea. It is a journalistic report, and which consists of the stories of those who fight, coming from the very personal point of view, and so it is part of the ingredient issue of the two countries. I think this historical record is very important to mention, and also basically we need to revive it between how the people and journalistic relations that I will mention later about the two nations is really important for building more comprehensive bilateral relationship between the two nations. As we know that starting from the consular relations, during that time, Indonesia sent her consular, Bapak LB Murdani, one of the senior among intelligence communities. But as I read it in his biographical book, Pak Beni also learned Korean. So I think it is important that Pak Beni is one amongst the earliest Korean waves before Korean started. So it is very important that besides that, Indonesia sending a general, a military background diplomat, the diplomat itself has a very good historical background to the host countries. So it is part of the earliest moment of the two countries, and that started from then. We have a strategic partnership, and since then also has been enhanced. So my point in this part is that the two countries' relations are not only about elite relations that also been strengthened in the current times, but started from the people-to-people relations. And I would like to come to the current situation of the Indonesian and Korea nowadays face, that we cannot escape from the effect of rivalries between the US and China in this region. We know that nowadays we have familiarized ourselves with the term of Indo-Pacific, in which different sides interpreted the the terms, the strategy concept as either containing or geoeconomic terms. Also, every countries in the region have to find a good way in balancing between the two giants, and between the trade war, there's also the possibility of hotspot zone, especially in South China Sea, in East China Sea, and between the two nations, we know that Korean faced the issue, the incident of THAAD, when the traditional alliance between the South Korea and US have affecting its trade relation with China, and Indonesia have also been entrapped between the two giants, which several diplomatic missions come to Indonesia to stress that rather Indonesian choose between the two sides, which I know that Indonesian would like to find its way to in balancing between the two giants, and finally, I think this is the main ideas between what I call as a middle power diplomacy is finding its own narrative in its diplomacy. So when in an ASEAN proposing ASEAN outlook on Indo-Pacific, which one of the focus is connectivity, I think it is one of the way of ASEAN to increase, to streamlining its narration towards the battle narration between the Indo-Pacific or BRI in China's perspective. So between Indonesia and Korea, I think find similar issues in finding the balancing and the legacy between the two giants. So, and what I have in mind is that compared to the previous era, I don't agree with those who would like to say that it's gonna be a new Cold War, or even like a Thucydides trap statement. My ideas to this issue is that during this time, it is gonna be a multiplex world in which the terms coming from Amitabh Acharya, which I think there is a different narratives. There is no either or logic. This is not a choosing side, but it is finding our voice in the battle, despite the reverse between the two giants. So in multiplex world, it is quite possible, and it is I think it is part of historical necessity for middle power to propose different scenarios to the global, what has been said by Ambassador Umar Hadi about leadership. So it is quite possible, and despite the debate between how does the possible or the chance of middle power to find its leadership, I think the first one is to stand on its own narratives against the rivalries between the two giants. So my point of argument is that to find the leadership, the economic cooperation. So this basically my ideas among the MICTAs that I want to share between Indonesia, in the case of Indonesia and Korea bilateral relations, that economic cooperation is very essential. It is an anchor for the keep up the middle power spirits. Since middle power is not stagnant, it's not very stable. There is a cycle of middle power moment in every countries. So economic cooperation means outward-looking spirit in its economic policy, also in cultural policy, is part of the bringing the middle power spirit between the two countries. And this kind of situation has been part of the focus of international relations scholars. My background is IR. So despite that, how does the main factors that become the explaining factors of the middle powerness? I think the recent studies is gaining attention is the state's role as an agency base. The latest study, I think, has focused on the role of leadership. Domestic or national leadership is very crucial in maintaining the outward looking of each of aspiring middle power. In this case is the leadership of Pak Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono and President Joko Widodo, and also from the Korean part, which I know that the issue of middle power diplomacy has been the very issue of between the think tank and the presidential team in Korea. So despite the three other factors, the intervening variables of a state role has been a crucial moment. And the other things that I want to share with you is that the issue of middle power is not only about studying IR. It is also about studying the organizational behavior of international organization, and also the historical aspect of the local region, and also about how does the economic development has become the norms in the region. I want to share with you the three research which comes from non-IR specialists, but it is very important for an IR student like me. The first one is Desuelande. It is coming the idea of from a management theory that the middle power itself is tackling the issue between the great and the small one. So in betweenness is the main issue. The other one is negotiating asymmetry. In this RAID 2009 studies, despite that there is narration between the great powers like China or the US, the other players in the region have their own perception about the greatness and how to manage the greatness. So it is not only about admitting that asymmetrical or symmetrical itself is constructed. It also means that each perspective is matter. Even the small or middle power have their own construction of other parts. So this is not about US setting herself as a great power, but how does the other player consider US as a local player in the region? And the next one is a study from Professor Chang. It is from, I think, a very famous Korean economist. I really admire his study. And in this picture, I show you the kicking away letter, which is basically about how does the developmental state ideas should be based on historical paths of each nation. So there is no such a blueprint ideas of how to become a modern, how to become great economics. Professor Chang studies I mentioned here is because every aspiring nation in this region want to become industrials, but how to become industrial is basically on how you have your own resources. So institution is matter, but how to develop your institution, you have to know your history and legacy. So this kind of situations, for me as an international students, is a very important if you want to build South Korea and Indonesia bilateral relations. So history and the current situation is important ingredient for us to build a solid bilateral relations. So how my perspective is on Indonesian side, how does the Indonesian current middle powerhood or middle power moods, since middle power itself is up. Yeah, Pak Agus.
5 minutes remaining left, please.
Okay, so this kind of situation is affecting Indonesian position in the region. So after 2008, I think Indonesian trying to propose the its trading partners, which is to not solely address the European and United States as the sole partner, but also pushing toward the South Asia or even to African countries. And the next thing that I want to share with you is how does the Indonesian and Korea convert its diplomatic influence into economic relationships. Comparing from data from LOI, the index of Indonesian diplomatic index, the Indonesian seems lag behind compared to South Korea. In this case, Indonesia have a strong diplomatic influence, but nevertheless, the problem is how to convert it with economic relations. Indonesia is relatively struggle to to build a more entrepreneurial attitude in the economic realm compared to the South Korea, who I think very successfully in building is a middle powerness based on trade hub. So this kind of issue that I want to share as an important focus of the bilateral relations. And in this current middle powerhood and middle power mood as well, I want to share that there is a slightly evolution between SBY and Jokowi, which is Jokowi is rather down to earth and selective. So this time and this moment should be grabbed between the two nations, since the two presidents want to start from below up to the strategic issues, which later my conclusion is that there is should be balance between the pragmatic economic diplomacy, which have been mentioned earlier, such as how does the COVID affect it, but also we have to aware that COVID itself create norms that Pak Umar Hadi said as a matter of leadership, a matter of nationalism, which should be avoided, since this is a public goods during the era. So balancing between strategic economic diplomacy and pragmatic economic diplomacy has become on the table between the Indonesian and South Korea to achieve. And the next one is, how does the economic security nexus, which is sitting between the two giants, we have to balancing between the economic and security issue as well. How does the Korean issue of ballistic issues and the trade issues between China has also been experienced in Indonesia since, and the next one is the diplomatic entrepreneurship. In this case, I would like to endorse the two countries building policy making on a foreign policy. In this case, maintaining diplomatic middle power diplomatic smooth has to be supported by strong research, not only from foreign policy or international relation issue, also from the wide areas such as economic and as well as cultural issues. So becoming a diplomatic middle power country is maintaining an outward looking based on its spatial needs. The next one is, thank you very much, Pak Agus. I hope my time is on time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Nato. It is on time. So I think you have enlightened us with an interesting angle of Indonesia and South Korea cooperation by raising the issue about the middle power diplomacy. That is very interesting. So for all my colleagues, all the participants, you are most welcome to deliver questions by writing your questions in the Q&A feature located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Probably we can note some worthwhile idea from the Mas Nanto's presentations, such as about negotiating asymmetry in the cooperation between Korea and Indonesia. And then he also mentioned about economic as the spirit of middle power diplomacy, and also about the inward versus outward cooperations. So again, thank you, Mr. Nato, thank you. For the next speaker, please allow me to invite Dr. Yong-Mi Ji. She will talk about COVID. So the operator, could you please display Dr. Ji CV? Yes. So yeah, Dr. Ji will talk about Korea experiences in response to the pandemic of COVID-19. So Dr. Ji holds a PhD from University of London, and then her professional experience as a Chief Executive Officer of the Institute Pasteur Korea. She's also a special advisor to the Prime Minister of Korea in health, and then a special representative for health diplomacy, Korea Foundation. And then she also a member of the WHO International Health Regulations COVID-19 Emergency Committee since January 2020, and also a member of the WHO Research and Development Blueprint Scientific Advisory Group since 2015. And she has received a award from the President of South Korea on the Medal of Distinguished Service in 2017. So as we have already known that it is unfortunate for both Indonesia and South Korea that 1 month after signing the partnership at the end of 2019, we were faced with the outbreak of COVID-19. So Indonesia and South Korea have different approach in managing the COVID-19 pandemic. And interestingly, if you read Time magazine, so the Time magazine put South Korea as one of the best countries in the world in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is an exceptional achievement. So we are all curious to know further about this achievement. We want to learn from the South Korea how to manage a better COVID-19 pandemic. So Dr. G, time is yours for 20 minutes, please.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. I want to thank you for inviting me to the KF LIPI international webinar today. I'm especially happy to join today's event after my first participation in the webinar with Indonesia April last year. Let me just share my slide with you. So today I'm going to share curious experience in responses to the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 and 2021. So we have kept our society open through 40 strategies by prioritizing early detection through preemptive diagnostic screening and very rigorous epidemiological investigations. Firstly, for the testing labs were rapidly expanded, including public and private sectors, after emergency use authorization of diagnostic kits in early February last year, following the meeting with the pharmaceutical companies on January 27, when we only had 4 cases in Korea. And turnaround time to receive a result is usually within 24 hours, and testing capacity can be easily scalable by involving private sectors. So we can manage up to 100,000 tests per day, and positive rate among tested is around 1 to 3% since March 10 last year, and WHO is recommending less than 5%, which means the outbreak is under control. And government is also has introduced need-based free testing of asymptomatic people and also high-risk groups. And secondly, for the tracing, we have introduced smart tracking system. This system significantly reduced time for the epidemiological investigation. For treatment, government designated infectious disease hospitals for COVID-19 patients, and also community treatment centers were introduced for mild cases, and those mild cases are still monitored by healthcare staff at least twice a day. And lastly, transparency I want to emphasize. Government provided press briefing twice a day since the first day of confirmation, leading to full trust in government and public engagement. And the next slide shows the current situation of COVID-19 in Korea. So we have confirmed over 98,000 cases with around 1.74% mortality. And amongst over 7.3 million, we have detected around 1.4% in average as positive cases. And we are now in the middle of expanded third wave, while vaccination started from February 26. And also we have introduced as I mentioned, voluntary free testing of asymptomatic people at temporary screening centers in the capital region and also non-capital region. So anonymous testing of around 2.7 million people were conducted in the capital region. Out of those testing, 0.27% was positive, and that represent around 7.1% of total confirmed cases. And government is also recommending PCR testing of at least one member from one family. And from a zero prevalence study, antibody testing shows that around 0.3% among military tenants. And we have also identified variants from international travelers since 28th of December last year. A total of 182 variants were detected that include 154 UK variant and 21 South African variant and 7 Brazil variant as of March 12. And government performed the sequencing for all positive cases arriving from travelers and also representative samples of outbreak cases. So around 10 positive cases per one outbreak. So far, around 3.9% of positive cases were sequenced, but it is planned that to increase the proportion of sequencing to 10%. So for the contact tracing, we have introduced IT-based smart tracking system. So epidemiological data are collected from various sources, including mobile phone carriers, immigration services, police, and credit card companies, public transit companies, and government agencies. Those data are analyzed by Korea CDC and the Ministry of Health and Welfare and shared with local government and related health agencies, and also with the public. So for the public, anonymized information is provided to encourage testing of people who may have crossed the path with confirmed cases. So this is based on clear legal mandates, which was established after 2015 MERS outbreak. Government also introduced a QR code system. So high-risk facilities should keep a visitor entry log to implement rapid response measures. So those high-risk facilities include restaurants, entertainment and recreational facilities, fitness centers, and concert halls. A visitor needs to register QR code through scanning upon entry to those high-risk facilities, and scanned information is automatically transferred to Korea Social Security Information Service, and to prevent any disclosure of private information, the system is updated to automatically discard all collected information after 4 weeks. So next one shows the management of the people under self-quarantine. So local government will assign a case officer for each case and each person. And the assigned case officers will conduct monitoring twice a day and enters the result into the system by in the public health centers. And the below shows the screen captures of self-quarantine safety protection mobile apps. And you can see the flow chart of the inbound travelers for the quarantine and the test. So to prevent the importation and spread of variants, all incoming travelers should go through 3 rounds of PCR testing, starting from February 24 this year. So the negative PCR testing results should be submitted before entry, and then PCR testing should be performed within 24 hours upon arrival, and also before releasing from quarantine. So moving on to the vaccination in Korea, the national vaccination strategy was officially announced on January 28th this year, and vaccination began on February 26th with AstraZeneca and 27 with Pfizer, which we received from COVAX. And there has been huge interministerial efforts. For example, vaccine transportation was supported by the Ministry of Defense, military, and police. And mobile vaccination teams are operated by public health centers. So around 250 vaccination centers are being established with further vaccination of Moderna and Pfizer vaccines, and over 10,000 vaccination facilities will be operated for AstraZeneca, Janssen, and Novavax vaccines. And we also have reinforced a very comprehensive adverse event following immunization, monitoring, and compensation system. And also we have conducted simulation exercise on Pfizer and AstraZeneca vaccines. In fact, first vaccination was performed for Korean soldiers in US Army base with Moderna vaccine in January this year. So next slide shows vaccine portfolio for 79 million people, and we have the population of 52 million. And so we have secured the 5 vaccines, AstraZeneca, Janssen, Pfizer, Moderna, and Novavax. And also we have secured the vaccine for 10 million people through COVAX mechanism. So among those 5 vaccines, AstraZeneca and Novavax vaccines are also produced by SK Bioscience, the Korean company. In addition, for the Novavax vaccine, SK Bioscience also had the technology transfer from Novavax vaccine. And also importantly, AstraZeneca vaccine is not only licensed by Korea Ministry of Food and Drug Safety, but also emergency use listed by WHO on February 15th this year for global use. And next slide shows the information available for the public to explain the procedure for the authorization of the vaccine by Ministry of Food and Drug Safety, and supply and distribution and vaccination, and also monitoring of adverse event following immunization. So we are targeting the vaccination of whole population, excluding pregnant women and the population under 16 years old. For those groups, the government will of course consider vaccination when the further data are available. And considering time of the vaccine supply and of available doses and effectiveness and goal of vaccination, initially government targeted vaccinating 1.3 million during first quarter and 9 million during the second quarter, but this has been adjusted to 12 million during the first half of this year. And then during the second half, 31 million is targeted. So that will make a vaccination of 43 million, which is 84% of whole population. So as I mentioned, the operation of the 250 vaccination centers with special setting is planned for the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, and over 10,000 medical facilities for the vaccination with the AstraZeneca, Janssen, and Novavax vaccines. And also we are operating very comprehensive AEFI monitoring and compensation system. And you can see the simulation exercise of the Pfizer vaccination. So February 9th, we have done the simulation exercise at 4 vaccination centers. Now during the week of March 17 to 23, 17 regional centers nationwide are participating in simulation exercise. You can see the scene of those exercise in those places. And also we have done the simulation exercise with the AstraZeneca vaccination that include actually the transportation of vaccines by Air Force. And government made huge efforts to communicate with the public on the vaccination plan. And there is a 3-minute YouTube video available for the public to explain the vaccination plan. And government also did the survey for the first vaccination group. And the consent rate for the vaccination was quite high, 93.8%. And with AstraZeneca, 93.6%. And with Pfizer, 94.6%. So during last 3 weeks since we started vaccination on February 26, over 675,000 people were vaccinated. So over 618,000 with AstraZeneca vaccine and over 56,000 with Pfizer. So those are healthcare workers at the COVID-19 patient treatment hospitals. And second dose Pfizer vaccination also began on 20th of March. So we have completed around 85% of target population for the first quarter. And if you see the advanced event following immunization monitoring, among those vaccinated, we had a report of AFI from 1.44%, mostly mild symptoms, but there was some reporting of anaphylaxis and also serious symptoms. Also, there was a report of the 16 deaths, but we consider those are not really related to the vaccination, and it happened mostly in nursing hospitals and facilities. There are also ongoing clinical trials for the vaccines and therapeutics. So there are 8 clinical trials for vaccines ongoing, and out of those 7 candidates are being developed by Korean companies. And also there are several vaccine candidates in preclinical stage. And also for the therapeutics, there's 14 the candidates in clinical trials. And also 2 therapeutics are approved by Ministry of Food and Drug Safety. One is developed by Korean company called Celltrion. And we are using low death-based syringes, which was developed by Korean companies, and this allows additional doses. For example, 6 to 7 doses for Pfizer instead of 5 doses, and 11 to 12 doses for AstraZeneca instead of 10 doses. And government secured 14 million syringes for COVID-19 vaccination. And we are targeting the vaccination of at least 70% of the population by September this year, and achieving herd immunity by November this year. Now, I want to also emphasize the role of developing country vaccine manufacturer network in 14 countries where vaccines are more needed. So that include one company in Indonesia, Biopharma, and also 5 companies in Korea. And I think this should be fully utilized to really scale up the production of COVID-19 vaccines worldwide. So what are the way forward? Obviously, we need to further invest in public health that include medical resources, infrastructure, human resources. And I also think participation in WHO international health regulation during external evaluation would be beneficial. And we also need to scale up infectious disease R&D, including One Health, human, animal, environment approach, and strengthen partnership with global health partners such as ACG accelerators for vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics. And we need to ensure vaccine access for low and middle income countries to achieve population immunity, herd immunity at the global level, with strong leadership of WHO, CEPI, and Gavi through COVAX mechanism. And also by maximizing the production of vaccines, as I mentioned, by developing country vaccine manufacturer network. And I also think the technology transfers from non-DCVMN to DCVMN manufacturers would be critical. And more comprehensive data need to be shared to facilitate the data-driven strategies at the global and regional levels. And we need to implement measures based on lessons learned from COVID-19 and develop sustainable preparedness, response, and research platform that can be utilized for disease X in the future. Finally, we can only exit from the acute phase of this pandemic by equitable distribution of vaccines and achieving herd immunity at the global level. And that the best time to prevent next pandemic is right now. And I do look forward to close collaboration in science and technology and infectious diseases between Indonesia and Korea. I thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your inspiring presentation, Dr. G. I note some lessons learned from your presentation, such as about testing coverage it is amazing that Korea does testing at least 1% for each family. We don't have such kinds of practice here. And then also about massive tracking, including keeping the log of visitors to the restaurants. So this show that South Korea use the technology optimally to manage the COVID-19 pandemic. And also vaccination is targeted for whole populations. Amazing. So again, to our webinar participants, you are most welcome to deliver questions to all the panelists. Just write your questions underneath at the Q&A feature. And then if we have enough time, I might invite you to speak directly to the panelists to deliver your questions. For the Dr. G presentation, we may discuss further later on in the Q&A sessions, for example, about the policy coordination between central and local government in managing COVID-19 pandemic and its related issues. And we can also probably discuss further about how can South Korea secure the vaccine procurement in a huge amount quickly. We want to know further about what kind of health diplomacy you did to obtain the vaccines in huge amount in such very short time. Okay. Now moving on to the next presentations. This might be the most interesting one, especially for our millennial generation participants. So please join me to welcome Professor Andrew Anji Kim, who will talk about Korean wave. My friends, could you please display Professor Andrew CV? Yeah, Professor Andrew will talk about Korean waves from Korea to the world, K-pop, K-drama, and K-beauty. Professor Andrew holds a PhD in sociology from the University of Toronto, Canada. So his professional experiences, he's currently as a director of the International Education and Research Center for Global Cultural Studies, Korean University. And Professor Andrew was dean of both the Graduate School of International Studies and the Division of International Studies, Korean University. And Professor Andrew is the Vice President of the World Association for Hallyu Studies. And he's also the editor of the ASEAN Journal of Religion and Society. Professor Andrew, time is yours for 20 minutes.
Okay, thank you for your kind introduction. And I'll turn this on. Okay, so can you see the screen well? Fine?
Yes, yes, all good.
Okay. So it's a great honor for me to give a presentation for an international webinar co-hosted by the Korea Foundation and Indonesian Institute of Sciences. As was introduced, my topic for today is the Korean wave, from Korea to the world, K-pop, K-drama, and K-beauty. And this is the outline of my presentation. So I give a very brief introduction to what Hallyu is, and then talk about the current most popular form or genre of the Korean wave, K-pop, which is Hallyu 2. And then I talk about the impact of the Korean wave, followed by factors for the success of Hallyu. And I conclude with a brief observation as to whether Hallyu will have a lasting power or not, okay? So I start with a brief introduction. As everyone knows, the Korean wave, or Hallyu, refers to the spread and popularity of Korean popular culture around the world. And if you were to put a timeline to this, you could say that Hallyu began in the late 1990s. Hallyu was first driven by the spread of K-dramas across Asia during its initial stages, but has now evolved from a regional trend into an influential global phenomenon. Korea is now one of the world's leading exporters of popular culture, along with the United States, Britain, and Japan. The Economist has dubbed Korean pop culture as Asia's foremost trendsetter. The Korean wave now encompasses the popularity of other Korean products such as online games, animation, fashion, and we call it K-fashion, food, K-food. I don't know if this is popular in Indonesia, but chicken and beer, very popular, at least in Korea. Cosmetics, K-beauty, and medicine. And this is, before I turn to Hallyu 2, this is a table that shows the evolution of the Korean wave, okay? So if you look at the second top line, you see the period, followed by the focus, diffusion area, examples, media, and directivity. I'm not gonna read these, but you could sort of take a look as to how Hallyu has evolved and will evolve. So Hallyu 3, it is said that we have just started the Hallyu 3 wave, okay? But for definitely we are at Hallyu 2, okay? And we're just maybe have a foot in the door of Hallyu 3, okay? So let me talk a little bit more about Hallyu 2, and that's K-pop. The Korean wave began with television dramas, but the most popular form of Hallyu today is K-pop. The breakthrough for K-pop came with the debuts of TVXQ, SS501, Super Junior, Wonder Girls, Girls' Generation, and other artists. But before I say what I wanted to say, in 2017, K-pop exports totaled $500 million, prompting Time magazine to claim that it is South Korea's greatest export. So it's not Samsung, it's not Hyundai. This magazine is saying, it's K-pop because it gives much deserved recognition to the potential power of Korean popular culture. The most popular K-pop artist today is BTS. And it became the first K-pop artist and the first Asian to top the Billboard 200. And, they've done it 3 times. And they're the only artist other than the Beatles to do that in a span of 1 year, okay? So, like having a #1 album in the Billboard 200 is a dream come true, even for an artist in the USA. So for an Asian artist, for a Korean artist to do this, it's really a momentous achievement. And now I turn to the third part of my presentation, the impact of the Korean wave. So what has this Korean wave done for Korea in general? I mean, for Korea, okay? And maybe for Asia, we'll I'll sort of briefly mention about that. The impact of the Korean wave goes like this. The first, it has led to the increase in exports of Korean cultural contents. So I've already mentioned, K-pop, K-dramas, but if you really look into the increases in exports related to culture, you find that the number one export item is not really K-dramas or K-pop, it's online games. Maybe I jumped ahead a bit, but before I talk more about the specifics of the Korean cultural contents, the exports of Korean cultural contents totaled over $6.7 billion in 2017. And that represented more than a five-fold increase from 2005. So here's a really nice graph that shows you the gradual increase of the exports of Korean cultural contents. And if you look at this particular table, you see that the number one cultural content export is not, again, it's not K-pop, it's not K-movies, it's not K-dramas, but online games. And these games, many people, including Indonesian students, may be playing Korean-made online games, but do not know about it because there is no specific Korean content in these games, okay? So I'll talk about that a little bit later as to the question of whether is Korean popular culture because it is culturally odorless, or is it because it contains something about Korea, okay? So we'll come back to this question a little bit later. The second positive impact of the popularity of Hallyu is the increase in international tourism to Korea. Okay, so the number of international tourists jumped more than 3 times between 2000 and 2016, reaching 17.2 million visitors to Korea in 2016. So here's a graph that shows you the rapid increases in the number of international tourists to Korea. The third positive impact of Hallyu has been the increases in exports of other cultural products, most notably packed Korean foods and cosmetics. 10, 20 years ago, if you went to Walmart in the United States, you would not have seen packed kimchi. But now you'll find kimchi and, of course, ramen. I don't know if ramen is popular in Indonesia. I'm talking about Korean ramen, right? Fourth positive impact of Hallyu has been the formation of more positive image of Korea. And that has led to increase in Korea's soft power. A BBC poll in 2016 revealed that public opinion of South Korea has been improving every year since data have been collected starting in 2009. A fifth positive impact of Hallyu is the greater interest in the study of Korea. So data show that at universities and at Korean cultural centers abroad, the enrollment in Korean language and culture classes have increased exponentially. And I'm sure Korea-related courses are also popular at Indonesian universities. Sixth impact of Hallyu is that it has become a source of national pride for many Koreans. Okay, and the next one is something that is maybe controversial, but I want you to think about this. Okay, Hallyu, especially K-pop, can be said to have inspired what can be called Asian pride. With Hallyu, Asians finally have international pop stars with whom they could identify with as being the same Asians. I mean, it's true that internationally, almost every major celebrity or star is a Westerner, especially American. But now you have, BTS, you have Super Junior. So you have these Asian stars with whom people all over Asia, again, can identify with or can relate to better over, let's say, Western stars. Okay. So, with these rising stars among K-pop artists, it has sort of become a cool thing to be an Asian. Okay. Okay, the second last part I want to talk about is the factors for the success of Hallyu. Okay, and the first is what I called hard power, and it has to do with competence. You see, success of Hallyu is closely linked to the rapid economic success of Korea. See, if you are prosperous, if you have money, it means you have the means and resources to create, to make high quality, attractive, sophisticated, and stylish cultural products. I mean, think of the USA as a superpower in popular culture. Why is that possible? Because it is a super rich country which has so much money that it could use to produce high quality cultural products. And while Korea is not up there yet, it is definitely producing cultural products that many people all over the world find very, very attractive. Okay. So in this regard, Hallyu can be said to be not just a cultural phenomenon, but also a economic phenomenon. Okay. The second factor is soft power, because economic affluence is equal to or translates into attractiveness. Korean Wave has succeeded because of the country's readily evident economic affluence. South Korea is now the 10th largest economy in the world, with a total GDP amounting to nearly $1.6 trillion. Okay, so it's not my saying, but there is this definite direct correlation between the economic strength of a nation, equal high living standard, and the outreach of its culture. I mean, if you think about why so many things about the West are also popular in other parts of the world, the answer lies in this soft power. Okay, so if a country has a high living standard, is economically advanced, then people simply get more interested in their cultures, and Korea has joined these ranks of economically advanced nations. Okay. Third is successful cultural hybridization. Cultural hybridization is the blending of elements from different cultures to create something new. And globalization has encouraged countless new cultural combinations. And Hallyu products, particularly K-pop, is a model of successful cultural hybridization. So a combination of attractive Western elements with Korean and Asian cultural contents have produced cultural hybrids, which are unique and appealing. Fourth is technological factor, changes in communications technology. Hallyu is the first case of spreading popular culture through IT. Internet-based social media such as YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and blogs functioned as global superhighways by which Korean popular culture reached tens of millions of fans overseas. YouTube in particular has allowed Korean music videos to circulate faster and wider than ever before. And online streaming services for dramas have also been very important in the spread of Korean, dramas. And the fifth factor is the policy factor, where Korean government has been very actively supportive of the development of cultural contents and also cultural export. Okay, so Korea has established Center for Promotion of Cultural Industry, which was re-established as the Korea Creative Content Agency in 2009. And the reason why Korean government does this is what I have below. Okay, it understands that the people's interest in Korean popular culture will, not only improve the country's soft power, but also it'll benefit the country economically, because people will be more interested in buying Korean products. Okay, I'll just skip this part, okay, because running out of time. As I mentioned earlier, there's this important question, okay, regarding the popularity of K-pop or Hallyu as a whole. Is K-pop popular because it is culturally odorless, or because it contains local cultural fragrance? Okay, so the culturally odorless or 무국적, literally meaning no nationality, K-pop arguments, goes like this. K-pop is not marketed as Korean. It intentionally devoids of Korean features, does not explicitly play up Koreanness. Instead, K-pop contains aspects of universal appeal, like boy bands featuring cute boys, girl bands featuring pretty girls, universal. K-pop songs are catchy, also universal feature. And K-pop videos feature complex, carefully choreographed dances. So if you follow the culturally odorless argument, K-pop is popular because it does not play up Koreanness. It tries to even hide this Asian or Korean element, okay? But the second argument goes like this. K-pop is popular because it contains local cultural fragrance, okay? Global fans look for something different, unique or exotic, and K-pop fills that gap, okay?
Professor Andrew, your time is 5 minutes left.
Okay. So, I'd like to pose this question. Is BTS, which is, again, the most popular K-pop band, is BTS popularity due to the fact that it is culturally odorless, or because it contains local cultural fragrance? Okay. To this question, one could say that BTS have emphasized their Koreanness. It intentionally avoided working with foreign composers or producers, and they do not sing in English. So at least this example of BTS says that BTS is popular because it contains local local cultural fragrance. Okay. Anyway, I'd like to conclude my presentation with the following comments. What is the future of the Korean wave? This debate continue as to whether Korean wave is a passing fad like yo-yo, or a lasting trend. The rise of competing cultural products from other Asian countries, especially those from China and Japan, and also maybe Indonesia, can undermine the popularity of Hallyu. And the increasing protectionist cultural policies of other Asian countries can also hurt Hallyu. And I'd like to close with the following observation. Kim Gu, statesman, politician, and independence activist, pointed to the importance of culture by saying that the power of culture lies in the fact that it not only makes ourselves happy, but it also gives happiness to others. And Danish futurist Rolf Jansen predicted the beginning of a dream society in the near future. Up to the stages of industrial and information societies, science, logic, and rationality ruled supreme, as they were necessary for increasing productivity for the survival of humanity. Humanity is now able to produce more than what it needs for survival, leading to a great social shift where human feelings and emotions become the main products which are bought and sold. In this dream society, therefore, products which stimulate people's imagination and emotions, for example, popular culture, are worth much more than material goods. People will be willing to pay $10, $20, $100 to watch a movie, to buy a CD, to go to a concert. Okay, that's where the period we live in. So we need a paradigm shift in how we view culture. Creation of a new culture, and that is a popular culture, is as important, if not more important, as cultural preservation. Why I say this? Because too many cultures, especially those in Asia, are too focused on cultural preservation while neglecting creating new culture. And with this comment, I like Indonesian students to think, when they think about culture, think about Coke, blue jeans. Why? They were newly created. They're not old culture of the United States. They were newly created. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Andrew. It was very interesting presentation. I note some interesting points. It is beyond of many people's expectation that the South Korea export of cultural content was mainly contributed by online games, not from K-pop. Oh,
that's right.
And you also mentioned about the popular culture of South Korea lead to increasing number of international tourists coming to South Korea.
Yes.
And also skyrocketing the interest in studying about Korea.
Yes.
And Professor Andrew also mentioned about factors affecting the success of Korean culture spread worldwide. There are five, at least there are five main factors: hard power, soft power, cultural hybridization, technology factors, and policy factors. And then, yeah, for our webinar participants, guys, especially you are millennial participants, you are most welcome to write the questions about KWeb. So I might invite one of you to directly ask a question to Professor Andrew. So prepare your question, please. And another one, I received a lot of direct message from participants and my colleagues asking me to play video of BTS or Blackpink. I think we should propose another webinar special about K-Webs to Dr. Bae from Korea Foundation. Dr. Bae, are you with us? He is resting probably. Okay, anyway, thank you. We proceed to our last presenter, Dr. Santo Darmo Sumarto. Welcome, Pak.
Thank you very much, Pak Agus. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Santo will talk about Indonesia-Korea Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement and the future of economic cooperation between Indonesia and South Korea. So Dr. Santo is currently a director for East ASEAN and Pacific at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Republic of Indonesia. So before holding these positions, he has also held many important positions in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Dr. Santo holds a PhD in political science from Monash University, Australia in 2005. And then he attended a lot of trainings in which one of them is training for senior diplomatic batch 59 in 2018. Dr. Santo, time is yours for 20 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Pak Agus. If anyway my internet connection goes awry, please do indicate to me later on. But hopefully my internet connection will be okay for the remaining 20 minutes of my presentation today. Thank you very much to LIPI as well as to the Korea Foundation for organizing this particular event, which is a timely event at a time when we would like to once again look at the relationship between Indonesia and South Korea and see where we are at the moment and where we would like to be in the next 5 or 10 years ahead of us. And I thank the moderator for your presentation of myself. And I will try to speak on a topic which is probably not as interesting as Professor Andrew Kim's topic. Although Professor Andrew, I do have to tell you though, BTS does sing in English. Their song Dynamite is in English.
Partly, yes.
Dynamite is all fully in English, but they just presented their song in the Grammy Awards recently. So I'm also an army in this sense. But it was a very interesting presentation from you, Professor Andrew, before myself. And I do like to admit to you that there is a need for us to also develop cooperation in this. And there's many things that we can learn from South Korea in this sense with the development of K-pop, not the actual cultural product in itself, but how Koreans manage to get there, the management, the financing, the investments. These are some of the things that probably us in Indonesia, we need to learn, because the culture itself, in creating a new international culture, then we can develop something, a bit of a hybrid between Korea, Indonesia, and world culture. But the management, the financing, the investment, that's something that we need to learn from Korea. Anyways, I'll speak about IK-SEPA, which is also hopefully as interesting as K-pop. If I can get somebody to put on my presentation, I think Pak Sandi, if I'm not mistaken, is the one with the presentation. If not, then probably a colleague of mine can. Oh, okay, we have. Oh, thank you very much. Can we go to the second page, please? Yes, the second page. Okay. Well, this is the process of the development of the Indonesia-Korea Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. And I think this will benefit some of our students who are watching at the moment and trying to find out what it is, the IK-SEPA. Well, the IK-SEPA was first launched in 2012, but it was paused for a long time until it was reactivated again in 2019. And I think the reactivation of the discussions on the IK-SEPA was basically down to the fact that the two presidents, President Moon Jae-in as well as President Joko Widodo, felt there is a need for a greater push for interactions between Indonesia and Korea, particularly in areas of trade and investment. And so in 2020, in December, it was signed, the IK-SEPA, the Indonesia-Korea Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. And right now, both countries are undergoing processes of ratification. In Indonesia, it's undergoing, we'll be starting the process of ratification with the parliament as soon as possible. Next. What are some of the coverage? Of course, the coverage includes market access. It includes trade facilitation and investment. And of course, it includes strategic partnership for the two countries. This includes trade in goods, rules of origins, trade in services, investment, as well as legal and institutional issues. These are some of the things. It's a very broad Indonesia has comprehensive economic partnership agreements with a number of countries, and of course, the one with Korea is the most recent one. Previous to that, we had one which was agreed upon with Australia, and as well as we have one with Japan that we have, including other countries in Europe as well, with EFTA as well. Next. What are some of the things that is supposed to be gained in the issue of bilateral trade? Our hope is that 92.06% tariff reduction from Indonesia and 95.54% tariff reduction from South Korea. Our hope is that we will be able to increase our exports to South Korea, including in areas such as bicycles, motorcycles, processed foods, seafoods, fruits, and what have you. And then also increase Indonesia's imports from South Korea in the form of garments, wool products, plywood, canned foods, and whatever. There's also great potential for future liberalization in Indonesia, as well as facilitation for other expanding areas of cooperation between the two countries. So there are trading goods as well as trade and services, which we are looking forward to enhancing in the near future. Next. These are some of the areas of improved economic cooperation: agriculture, manufacturing. We've got rules and procedures for trade facilitation. And I would like to highlight that Indonesia's largest market, the fourth largest, we have a very large market for Korean products. We are the fourth largest population in the world and the 16th largest economy. And as an anecdotal data here, between 2013 to 2020, we've had a rising export of instant noodles from South Korea, as well as cosmetics. And I think this very much has to do with what Professor Andrew Kim was just mentioned, which is its popularity being brought also by the Korean wave. Next. Now, we're looking at investments now. In South Korea is the 5th largest foreign investor in Indonesia, with about more than 5,000 projects in Indonesia at the moment. What we appreciate is the fact that South Korean investments benefits about 102,000 Indonesian workers, meaning that it provides work for more than 100,000 Indonesians in Indonesia. Of course, some of the areas which are key are in Java Island, that includes the West, Central, and East Java, as well as the province of Banten, and also in Maluku. So this raises the question whether or not IKSEPA will be able to encourage investments beyond Java. There are investments beyond Java, but we need to see more of them, particularly in the eastern parts of Indonesia. There's also high potentials for cooperation in areas such as automotive, nickel, chemical, pharmaceuticals, and renewable energy. And of course, with IKSEPA, our hope is that the investment climate in Indonesia would improve, particularly in terms of investor protection with non-discriminatory treatment, as well as fair and equitable treatment. Next. At the same time, we recognize that our economic cooperation is still hampered by a number of external factors. The global pandemic is one of the factors, which has caused bilateral, well, not only the global pandemic, but also trends in the last few years also has seen bilateral trade fall by 30% from 2019 to 2020. We also see Indonesian exports fall by 13.9% within those particular periods as well. But some of this academic as well as researchers indicate that Indonesia-South Korea trade is actually in a safe zone, indicating that possibly once we are out of this pandemic, we'll be able to increase our trade cooperation, increase our investment cooperation. And we are seeing that trend happening at the moment. And we are hoping that the post-pandemic period will be able to kick off some of the things that we wanted to do right after the signing of the IKSEPA. Next. Okay, I would like to highlight what are the contributions provided by IKSEPA to our special strategic partnership. Of course, it boosts exports because Indonesia at the moment is just the 12th largest exporter to South Korea. We are falling behind Vietnam, Malaysia, and Singapore. So hopefully we'll be able to do that. Next. Also, we would like to be able to see how IKSEPA can contribute towards other avenues of cooperation in strategic sectors, such as EVs, electronic vehicles, batteries for EVs, and auto accessories. We are also hoping that Indonesia could be a regional hub for electronics in the Asia as well as the Middle Eastern markets. And we are hoping as well that IKSEPA could promote industrial upgrading from low and medium tech sectors to high tech sectors. This is hoping that Indonesia can be better integrated into South Korea's value chain network. These are some of the hopes that we have with regards to IKSEPA and how it can contribute to our special strategic partnership. Next. As well, going along with the theme of today's webinar, connectivity, IKSEPA can definitely enhance the connectivity between our two people, between our institutions in Indonesia, provinces, cities, communities, as well as, so we'll be able to truly understand what is the meaning of the special strategic partnership, meaning that our cooperation is not limited to just government to government or business to business, but also it goes beyond that to touch every aspect of livelihoods in South Korea as well as in Indonesia. We hope that research and development, employment, and immigration programs, hopefully there will be an easing means of that, even though we do recognize that the number of Indonesians working in South Korea at the moment is very high, as well the fact that the Korean community here in Indonesia is one of the largest, if not the second largest in Indonesia at the moment. And of course, we would like to see greater cooperation in security and defense industry. Next. We also would like to see intergovernmental cooperation in these areas, like tourism, cybersecurity, and what have you. Green and sustainable programs, that's also an area which we would like to see greater cooperation. And I know that that Korea will be hosting the P4G summit this year as well. So some of the trends as well. And of course, you know, popular culture, K-pop, K-drama, and K-movies. Indonesia is a big market for this, but our hope is that Indonesia could also be part of efforts to recreate maybe I-pop in the future, but learning from what K-pop has been successful. So we'll have an I-pop. Actually, I-pop sounds kind of cool, yeah. Maybe we'll be able to do that. Next. I think I have a couple more minutes here. Can we do more? What can we do more? And now. Both countries need to work closer and more creative in policymaking to ensure rapid economic recovery. IKSEPA was created, and IKSEPA is now been signed, and soon it will be ratified. But it will be meaningless if we don't actually do concrete steps to implement it. So there needs to be efforts to actually develop concrete programs. There needs to be efforts to develop concrete capacity mechanisms or projects in order for people to actually put full use of the IKSEPA. The problem with comprehensive economic partnership agreements or for free trade agreements is that it is out there, but the people or the businesses, the communities don't actually understand how to use it. They don't understand completely how to take advantage of these frameworks of cooperation that has been carefully crafted by the two sides, two governments. So we have to be able to further introduce what IKSEPA and how the people can actually take benefit from IKSEPA in enhancing its cooperation between the two countries. We are also seeing ways to further implement the IKSEPA through the travel corridor arrangement. Actually, the travel corridor arrangement, which allows Indonesians as well as Koreans to visit both countries without necessarily undergoing a tremendous amount of quarantine, is actually one of the more successful travel corridor arrangements out there. Indonesia has travel corridor arrangements with a number of countries, including Singapore, the UAE, China, as well as we're trying to develop with Malaysia as well. But I have to highlight that the one that we have with Korea is the most successful and most used, effectively used by the businesses and officials who are trying to enhance cooperation between the two countries. Next. We need to tap into new markets involving SMEs and also encourage what we are doing today right now is 1.5 and track 2 cooperation or discussions. And also we'll have to be able to somehow diversify our product cooperation and also improve cooperation and sustainable growth. These two countries, we have a number of things. We are strong in democracies. We're also strong in our desire also to create development which is sustainable. And I think at the end of the day, how IKSEPA and how the Special Strategic Partnership can make Indonesia and Korea contribute more towards regional as well as global betterment. And I think with that, I will end my presentation right now. And thank you very much to the moderator, as well as thank you very much to everybody who's had the opportunity to be in this webinar. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Santo. It was a very comprehensive presentation in a very short time. I note some important points from Dr. Santo's presentations that are worthwhile to be elaborated later in the discussions. Some of them are about the potential of cooperations under IK-CEPA could touch multi-dimension aspects beyond economic, investment, and culture. And then Dr. Santo also mentioned about that we need a more creative policy making, and then concrete steps and programs. And then we need also to spread the information about IK-CEPA to introduce further to the businessman, to the people, and to others. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Santo. We have finished the presentation session. We received a lot of questions addressed to all speakers. May I read the question first to Dr. G? Are you still with us, Dr. G?
I'm sorry, Dr. G. Oh, hello. I'm sorry, Dr. G.
Yep.
She had an urgent matter in her office, so she had to leave just now. So, would it be okay to leave her questions for later to be answered later?
Oh, of course, sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, then I will direct the question first to. Let me check. To Mas Nanto, to Mr. Nanto, before to Professor Andrew. So we have some questions for you. The first question is, in what level of playing ground for Indonesia and South Korea as middle powers to cooperate in dealing with current challenges of multiplex power, especially the competition between the two giants, probably about the US and China. And then the second question is, how about regional stability as an important factor for both Indonesia and South Korea in achieving their shared interests? What initiatives that both countries could do to ensure the fulfillment of regional stability? Okay, probably that is for Mas Nanto. Do you want to answer no, or just collect the questions and back to your answer?
Sorry, I think I gave the first session to our star today, Professor Andrew, because a lot of questions addressed to him. So yeah, I think better for Professor Andrew reply to his audience who really keen to know about K-wave and K-pop. Thank you, Pak Agus.
Okay, so yeah, sure, we have a lot of questions for Professor Andrew. Okay, just read from the Q&A feature. Let's read here. The question from Nazahra Aruni. She is a university student from University of Pajajaran. Her question is, what fields have the strongest influence on Indonesia and South Korea relations? What things have the potential to be developed in the future for Indonesia and South Korea, especially probably in the cultural cooperations? That is one question to Professor Andrew. Probably that is what for this session. Please, Professor Andrew. Sorry, your mic is still mute. Professor Andrew, your mic is still mute, so could you please open your mic? Yeah.
I think it would be better if I could entertain a couple more questions before I could answer, like all of them together.
still mute.
Thank you. Yeah, we have a lot of questions. What intended to you?
Anyway, the question that's been raised, it's a very difficult question to answer, and it's a question that I think I need more time to explore.
Okay. And this is another question. How long the Korean wave will be exist, and then what kind of cultural phenomenon that might replace the Korean wave in the future? Okay.
Well, nobody can tell how long Hallyu will be popular, because we've seen how a similar phenomenon did fade away. Because, you know, like in the 1990s, we had J-Wave. It did not last long. But of course, back then, they didn't have the internet. They did not have the YouTube. So we have a technology that's in favor of the lasting the lasting power that Hallyu may have. And now, as for the biggest threat, I think it'll be you know, similar sort of phenomena emerging from China, and you know, of course, Indonesia is a possibility too, because I think Korea has set an example, and many countries are interested in emulating the success of K-pop and Hallyu.
Okay. So what do you think about other phenomenon culture that could replace the K-wave in the future as a contender of cultural competition?
Well, you know, I think I sort of said something in the line of how other similar types of, like, you know, again, I-pop, C-pop, something similar, but with different contents, may become popular. Okay?
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question, but
okay. Okay, thank you, Dr. Andrew. I'll move to Mr. Nanto. You want to address the questions that I gave you before?
Thank you, Mas Agus, Pak Agus. For this opportunity, I think there are several questions that addressed to me. One of the from Frisky Nurniza about the industrialization, since I quote Professor Chang about the kicking away the ladder, and the other two is, as you mentioned, second slide, third slide, which put the Korean fighters in Indonesian revolutions. Basically, my idea is about the bilateral relations is something that go deeper, since the idea of independence supported by quote unquote foreign fighters is very cosmopolitan ideas, and ideas of Pak Mokhtar Lubis, a famous journalist at the time, coming to Korea to directly report from the field about the Korean War is also important. So beside the key waves, the current key waves, and other people to people, I want to mention about my current experience, and especially could be a lesson for the Korean Foundation and other stakeholders in creating people to people between the two countries. At the time, I was invited by the newspaper want to be brief about the Sea of Japan.
Mr. Nanto, could you please just off your video and just use your yeah.
Okay, sorry for the bad connection. So I continue my answer. So during that, the reporters raised so many questions, and the question is actually very related to the common people. But what I want to share with you is that no, all the issue of high politics is quietly understand among the journalists, especially like this, that Handoko said that there is an enclave, Korean enclave around LIPI neighborhood. Like in the Senopati, we can see there is a Korean restaurant or something like that. But for these journalists that I addressed the issue, for them, they raise the question like, is there any possibility of a Korean refugee during that time? So this kind of situation, understanding between the two nations is very important. So what I want to claim or state is that we need to address the issue of understanding between the two nations to be more in-depth issues, such as we know that several YouTubers have become a bridge builder between the two nations. And I think the future relations side, the high politic issue is also part of daily life of the Indonesian and Korea. And so I would address the question about how regional factors has been affected Korean foreign policy in Indonesia. For Korean, I think since its independence, the issue of whether they should address the great powers or multilateral organizations like UN is also become part of the foreign policy lexicon. Also in Indonesia, we know that the doctrine of free and active foreign policy is addressed by Vice President Muhammad Hatta due to its understanding of the foreign policy of the US and USSR at the time. So between the two nations, the great power rivalries has become the main lexicon of their foreign policy. We know that the South Korea, after achieving in post-Asian financial crisis, to be more active in addressing the development. So I think this is a good question from Frisky, that the industrialization in Korea is not only importing the whole ideas or blueprinting from the West, but also implanting based on the social culture of the South Korea itself. Like it knows that after the Asian financial crisis, South Korea amending its institution and also achieving a solid leadership in addressing how does the South Korea should find its niche in its foreign policy, starting from security policy and then readdress it to the more economic issues without neglecting the security issues. So it is fine-tuned balancing that's become the Korean foreign policy. Also happened in Indonesia after the Asian financial crisis. We know that we have a process benah diri in which former foreign ministry Pak Hasan finding the total diplomacy, in which this is not only the foreign ministry become the tip of spears of Indonesian foreign policy, but also another stakeholders such as Muhammadiyah and NU, as well as other factors like journalists. During that time, journalist correspondence between Indonesia and other nations is become important. So in this kind of situation, I think industrialization addressed by Professor Chang is that Indonesians should find that the economic issue is not isolate from the other political issues, such as the Indonesian aspiration to become a developmental state, industrial state, should be based on the current condition, rather than blueprinting from other project. So this kind of issues, I think, is better to be developed by Indonesia and South Korea. And one important thing that I can mention here is about tripartite relation in developmental project. We know that Indonesia has established an Indonesian aid. I think it should cooperate with the Korean Foundation to address in third country project, so it can be managed between Indonesia and Korea to contribute more on international peace. That is my question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mas Nanto. There are two questions to Professor Andrew. First is from Nazahra Aruni from Pajajaran University. Her question is, BTS being nominated in the Grammy Award, which are the biggest and highest music award in the world. So they are breaking the barriers, paving the way for Asian music in the world. Is there any more influence for South Korea because of that? And how did South Korea respond to this? And then another question from, it is replaced by the, from Hairana and Ratu from National University. Is Korean drama a part of popular culture that follows market demand? Okay, those are two questions for Professor Andrew, but please hold the answer because I will direct another question to Professor Santo. We have a question for Santo. Korea is one of the most favorite destinations for young Indonesia to find jobs. Do you think is it possible to have special bilateral agreement between Indonesia and Korea? For example, the extension years for Indonesian to work in Korea. Okay. Do you want to answer more, Professor Andrew? Yes.
Oh, Professor Andrew, Professor Kim, do you want to answer first, or would you like?
No, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Professor Kim. I actually, if I may, I have to leave this session to go back to another meeting, but at the same time, I would like to answer some questions first. And thank you very much for that particular question related to employment for Indonesians in Korea. I think the number of Indonesians working in Korea is massive at the moment, but I think there is also a need for diversification. We also see a lot of Indonesians studying in Korea and studying not only the language, but also studying other fields of cooperation as well. I would like to inform you, for example, one of my junior diplomats that has just joined our Ministry of Foreign Affairs actually graduated from a university in Korea, which also raises the hope of greater cooperation, greater people-to-people contact, and people being educated in Korea, and also a lot of Koreans being educated in Indonesia. I have met so many Koreans who speak fluent Bahasa Indonesia, and therefore there's a great connection between the two countries as well. I think I would like to add on to this is that between Indonesia and Korea, there is no historical baggage. There is no historical baggage like the ones that we have with Japan, for example, with China, or even with our other neighbors, for just Malaysia, Singapore, Australia, and what have you. So if you were to ask anybody in Indonesia about Korea, it will always be positive, particularly with the fact that the popularity of Korean dramas, Korean pop, and Korean food in Indonesia. There's nothing bad about Korea out there. So the opportunity for greater cooperation between our two countries is just so massive because in our minds, we are open for cooperation. So we have to somehow grab this by the throat and actually make sure that whatever opportunities that are presented to us now, we take it and we try to maximize it as much as possible. Korea is not a big country. Korea doesn't have that big of a market, but the markets are here in Indonesia. At the same time, we recognize as well there's an opportunity for our SMEs to also export to Korea as well, and make Korea probably become a hub for exports in other parts of the world. So we have to somehow be able to make this connection between the two countries. Of course, in the past, there's talk about Korea and Indonesia getting together with Australia to become 3 middle power countries, KIA, and somehow be the engines for cooperation in the region. It's something that we should continue to talk about. It's something that we need to somehow be able to see that, now that we have a SEPA with Australia and also a SEPA with Korea, maybe that particular cooperation can actually be something more tangible. Because in the past, it was just a cooperation between middle powers in our head, but in the future, probably these SEPAs, they can work together. The 3 of us can work together somehow to enhance our cooperation based on the future of international cooperation, which is trade and investment these days. So these are some of the things that we need to further explore between our two countries, and we have a good basis. The good basis is that the perception of Koreans in Indonesia is very positive, and now it's time for us Indonesians to work on our perceptions. How is Indonesia being perceived in Korea? And hopefully the perceptions of Indonesia in Korea is getting better and better by the day, with more Koreans living in Indonesia, more Koreans visiting Indonesia, and also more Indonesians visiting and living in Korea at the moment. So these are some of the things that we should be able to do. And also ICASEPA is one of the things that we can make as a basis of our cooperation. Thank you. And with this, I would like to finish myself.
Just one question.
Yes.
What kind of concrete scheme to deepen such kind of people-to-people connectivity cooperations?
There are many schemes at the moment, which is including in scholarships and what have you. Scholarships in Korea is not only we don't see scholarships coming in from government only, but also we'll see scholarships coming in from companies, from associations, from communities as well. So there are a number of scholarships for Indonesians to actually study in Korea, not only study language, but also study degree programs in Korea. We are also working on the possibility of developing, what is it called again? Tourist, what do you call it? I forgot what the name of the program is. But basically, you're there visiting tourists. Working visit programs as well, where people can visit Korea, hopefully work and also do work there as well. These are some of the schemes and mechanisms that are being developed at the moment by the two countries, seeing that there is value in these exchanges, not only in the fact that there is a lot of the Indonesian youth and the Indonesian manpower is there for its its development and also for its implementation in a lot of other countries, and we are seeing that being transpired in Korea as well. So hopefully we'll see more Indonesians working in areas or fields of employment that was not usually particularly for Indonesians in the past, like IT or entertainment or services and what have you. So we'll hopefully be able to work on those things. Hopefully ICASEPA can be part of that trend towards that particular type of cooperation as well. Thank you, Pak Agus.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak.
If possible, please come to join again with us later on.
Yes, I'll try.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So with the absence of Dr. G and Dr. Santo, so our discussion is like K-pop discussions. So the stage is fully for Professor Andrew.
Okay.
So, yes, please, Professor Andrew. Please.
Okay, the question raised by Nazhara Aruni, I think she's very correct in saying that Grammy Awards is the biggest music awards in the world because US music market accounts for up to half of all music sales in the world. Half. So it's awards, of course, it's the biggest and highest, whatever. So the fact that the BTS was nominated for an award for the Grammys, it'll definitely break the barriers, pave the way for other Asian music artists. So I think this point is really important because right now everything is about Hallyu, K-pop, but I think this really opens the door for pop music in other Asian countries to, you know, again, it gives these new types of music a chance to showcase themselves abroad. So, you know, BTS, K-pop has shown that it is possible. So if the product is, you know, attractive, it will sell. Okay. So, and the last part of the question was, how did South Korea respond to the BTS being nominated? Of course, it was a national news. It was featured on the every evening news when it, you know, when BTS was nominated. So it's a big news. Now, could you repeat the second question, please? Agus.
Yeah, that is from Hairana and Ratu from National University. She's asking about, is Korean drama a part of popular culture that follow market demand?
Okay. Well, I think it goes both ways. You know, market demand has an influence on what dramas are made or how dramas are made. But at the same time, dramas could drive up market demand for certain brands or certain products, right? So I think it's safe to say that it goes both ways. Mutually influential, market demand, dramas.
Okay, thank you. My friends operator, could you please invite from Kata Data, Ms. Nessa to speak directly to Professor Andrew. So while you are preparing to invite Mbak Nessa, two questions to Professor Andrews are, first from Mbak Chelsea Sindoro. Her question is, what do you think about the future collaboration, or what potentials that you see in terms of cultural contents that can strengthen Indonesia-South Korea relations? This is from Mbak Chelsea Sindoro. And then another question from Mbak Sharifah Nurhaya. What kind of support that government gives, South Korean government gives to K-pop or other artists to develop soft power? Again, to my friends who operate this Zoom webinar, could you please invite Mbak Nessa from Katadata to speak or to deliver the question directly to Professor Andrew later on? Okay. And to Professor Andrew also, if you have a video of K-webs in the form of K-pop, K-drama, or K-beauty, short video, you want to share with us to play here, most welcome. But a short video later on. So it's up to you. You want to answer the question first or want to play the video first? It's up to you, Professor.
I don't have any video to play. To answer the questions,
yeah.
The first question is a really complex question. Without knowing much about Indonesian culture and, you know, let alone Indonesian popular culture, I don't know what kinds of collaboration can really happen. Again, it'll be like I mean, if it's a project, you know, I would love to, you know, collaborate with an Indonesian researcher, but at this point, I cannot provide any sophisticated answer about this question. But it's something that I think researchers of both countries should think about and maybe pursue in due time. Okay. Yeah. Regarding the second question, the most support that the Korean government has provided have been to the creation of contents. So for example, producers of Korean dramas, if they need these dramas if they need support for translations into different languages, that's where the Korean government could provide subsidies. But with K-pop, the conspicuous way that the government has helped was to provide funding for concerts, you know, by like a number of K-pop artists in order to promote K-pop.
Okay.
But the most support that the Korean government has provided to Hallyu artists have been for movies and dramas.
So for the K-pop, that is purely a market mechanism, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah. Thank you, Professor Andrew.
Thank you.
With us, Mbak Nesa from Data is join us. Hello. Hello, Mbak Nesa. Hello, Mbak Nesa.
Mas Agus, Miss Nesa could not join us.
Why?
She is in the studio right now and a little bit noisy, so she could not ask directly to Professor Andrew.
Okay. Yeah. While she's preparing for the next sessions. Now we have two questions to Mr. Nanto. The first question is from Helman. The question is, how should middle power diplomacy be applied to give wider impact in maintaining regional stability, especially in ASEAN? Hello, Mas Nanto. Are you getting the question?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I will read it. How should middle power diplomacy be applied to give wider impact in maintaining regional stability, especially in ASEAN? Probably you could relate with the Myanmar conditions. And then the second question from Nazara Aruni from Pajajaran University: what fields have the strongest influence on Indonesia and South Korea relations? Okay, Mas Nanto.
Okay.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mas Agus and the audience who raised this question. I think, related to ASEAN and middle power, I think, we know one of the issue of middle power diplomacy is maintaining strategic autonomy, and ASEAN is one of the pillar of the small and medium players to have their strategic autonomy in this kind of issue. So related to how we could endorse the middle power diplomacy in ASEAN is one of the thing that comes up in my mind right now is that it's not only related to Myanmar, but also in wider issue that they have to their own kind of ideas that sell to the great powers, not only become the subject of the ideas of the great powers, such as the connectivity itself. You know that there is a current contending approach on how the connectivity in ASEAN. I think in ASEAN itself, the connectivity should be based on the ASEAN needs rather than imposed by the great powers. In that case, we know that the ASEAN connectivity should serve the ASEAN needs rather than the Beijing Center or Washington centered connectivity.
So what are the ASEAN needs, Mas Nanto? What are the ASEAN needs?
The ASEAN needs to maintain its centrality through basically proposing the ideas. So why does my last conclusion is research? Middle power itself could be supported by the research, such as building diplomatic entrepreneurship is not only doing business as usual diplomacy, but finding the niche, creativity, just like Korean have to balancing between the high politics and economic needs. Indonesia and ASEAN also should balance that, since rather in connectivity, should we address the connectivity as merely infrastructure mechanism, or we need to build more people to people so that we can build the Asian identity. So this kind of issue of middle powerness should be addressed, and I don't think that ASEAN could escape from the great power rivalries if they are not linking the maintain an active and creative solution towards the region, such as the Myanmar issue. It is I agree with many ASEAN scholars who think that it is time for ASEAN to address several issues in human rights. Indonesia has become the main endorser since 2000s when Pak Hasan Wirajuda became our prime minister, our foreign minister. But I think it is time to redress that issue. So middle power become middle power is not only having a material capability, it also become a think tank and foreign policy based on research. That's what I should say on the Asian issues. And the second one, I think about the main future about Indonesia and Korea, the issue of how to manage economic and security nexus diplomacy, in which in this case we know that we cannot escape and isolate between the two issues. We know that Indonesia and Korea have maintained, have to achieve, to address their strategic autonomy. In this case, South Korea want to become an active participant in six-party talks, and also Indonesia want to become an active participant in the future of Indo-Pacific region. So in those two bilateral issues, I think the region become the center of attention. And in this case, we know that we should address that between the geoeconomics and the geopolitics has to be balanced. And in this case, Indonesia and Korea could start address such an issue like giving the potential of keeping the RCEP moving together, since RCEP is one of the multilateral trade initiative that put ASEAN centrality or middle power and small power centrality in this case. Okay. And another issue is Indonesia and South Korea should anticipate the technicalities after the COVID, which is increasing the trade and connectivity. So balancing between the economic and security is main areas of Indonesia and Korea should endorse in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, we got your point, Mas Nanto. Thank you. For the questions intended to Dr. G, she has already replied directly to your questions. So please check your inbox, okay, from Dr. G. And then we still have two questions. Probably this is the last question for the QA session, directed to Professor Andrew. First from Nessa from Katadata. How the pandemic affect the spread of Korea content around the world, especially Korean artist concert. Is there any development in technology sector to provide new way communication between artists and their fans, such as VR, video reality concert, or others? First question. And then the second question from Kurnia Alipal from National University. Since a new Korea dishes has a very interesting look, color, taste, and its combinations of the cuisine or food, and Indonesia also known for its cuisine, how it would affect the collaboration if it happens? But before answering these questions, there is also a question about scholarship. Probably this is intended to Dr. Bai. So some participants give a question about if they want to apply scholarship for the for the master degree or PhD degree to Korea. So where should they ask about the information? What source of information they should refer? Please, Dr. Bae.
Oh, okay. Okay. First of all, thank you very much for those questions. It feels really good to see people are interested in getting educations to get to know Korea more. So for your, I'm going to answer very shortly. So for the answer of getting scholarship to Korea, I mean, there are various ways, you know, there are government scholarship, there are scholarships from Korea Foundation and other institutions as well. So for Korea Foundation, all those information about scholarship is going to be on the website, so please check that out. And also I mean, there are, you know, various of other kinds of scholarships to study in Korea. So and I'm pretty sure that I can't mention you know, every one of them, but I'm pretty sure that you could you know, it's easy to search them on the internet, so please do that. And anyways, please check out the Korea Foundation website, and it's going to be nicely guided to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bae. Professor Andrew, please.
Okay, the pandemic. If I were to mention one main impact of the pandemic on the spread of the Korean content, I think it's the concerts. All the planned concerts by K-pop artists have been canceled for the last year. Other than that, because the other contents are typically enjoyed through the internet, the impact of the pandemic has been minimal. So the only real impact has been on the concert sort of sector. Okay, and when it comes to new communication between artists and their fans, I think you know, K-pop artists do a lot of things for their fans. So many of their services are done to their specific fans, rather than being open to all fans of K-pop. Okay? So, and was the second question directed to me?
Yes, this is about the food diplomacy. Food.
So what was the question again, please?
The question from Kunia. Since I knew Korea dishes has a very interesting look, color, taste, and its combinations, so how it would affect the collaborations between Indonesia and South Korea with the rest of the world? Thank you.
Well, I think several questions have been raised about the potential collaboration, right?
Yeah,
now,
that's right.
For me to answer these questions effectively, I have to know more about Indonesia. Yes, I've been to Indonesia a couple of times, and every time I was there, the foods I really enjoyed. So I'm just hoping that more people all over the world get to taste Indonesian cuisine. But when it comes to collaboration, I cannot really say much. But I do have a real, you know, respect for Indonesian cuisine because it's so tasty.
I think we should invite you to come to taste some local and traditional food.
Yes.
Then we can make a collaboration.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Andrew.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we received a lot of questions. So due to time constraint, we are unable to deliver all the questions to the panelists. So we do apologize for that. And I'm not going to make any conclusion from this discussion. So rather, I would give opportunity to each presenter, in this case, Professor Andrew and Mr. Nanto, to give a short concluding statement, let's say in 1 minute. Mas Nanto, are you still with us? Hello, Mas Nanto.
Hello.
Yeah, you want to
Hello?
give us concluding statement for 1 minute,
Sorry.
please? You want to give a concluding statement for 1 minute?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you for the organizing committee, Ibu Nuke as the head of IPSK and from Korean Foundation. I think my comment is quite brief that Indonesia and Korea have a lot of opportunity to build their bilateral relations. I want to quote Pak Santo's statement that we have no historical baggage, but I want to stress also that one of the important things between Korea and Indonesia is that the Korea is a very monolith culture and Indonesia is quite diverse. As Prof. Andrew said, that actually we have difficulties to define what is Indonesian cuisine because there is a lot of ethnic in Indonesia. So we have to learn from Korea, but we should not become Korean because we are Indonesian and we are a very diverse group of ethnic. So be Indonesian, be yourself, and learn about Korea. Thank you.
Thank you, Mas Santo. Professor Andrew.
So it's the last 3 hours, very enlightening for me to learn more about Indonesia and the relationship between Korea and Indonesia and its future potential. And looking at how like more than 500 participants or the students are partaking in this webinar, sort of makes me think maybe if we had Korean students also participate in this, it would have been much more fruitful. Okay, so something similar, maybe we should organize for Korean students as well. And I like to say this to Indonesian participants that yes, I think Korea is known for being ethnically homogeneous, but I think sometimes what really brings power is diversity.
Okay.
So I think what Indonesia has is this rich diversity, and I think they could be channeled into something very productive and powerful. And I wish the best for your beautiful country. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Andrew. So to all webinar participants, please join me to give a big applause to all these inspiring panelists. And yeah, thank you again all for your active participation. Now I'm returning the stage to the MC. Mbak Indah, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Agus, and all of the speakers, of course, and of course, all the participants that is still staying with us for today's discussion. It was a very great discussion, and I hope all of you have a pleasant discussion. Before we continue to the next session, I would like to remind all of the participants in Zoom webinar to fill the attendance form we shared in the chat room. Ladies and gentlemen, please now let me invite the Director of Korea Foundation in Jakarta office, Director Bay, to deliver his closing remarks for this webinar.
Yes, hello. Before I start, I want to thank Dr. August for leading the webinar very interestingly and very heatedly. I could really feel the passion, throughout the webinar. So, on behalf of the Korea Foundation, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to LIPI for co-organizing this webinar. In particular, my appreciation goes out to all of our scholars who have participated today. So the wisdom and the insights that have emerged from this webinar can serve to guide us as we seek to go beyond the parameters of the current relations of our two countries. So I remember last year meeting with Professor Dr. Nook, Director Ms. Kanewati, Dr. Nawawi, to discuss what LIPI and Korea Foundation could do to enhance understanding in both countries about Indonesia and about Korea. And so we were exchanging and discussing a lot of ideas, and it added and those ideas have fruited to today. So having said that, I will look forward to this webinar serving as a part of the initial program with LIPI in building a bridge to strengthen research cooperation and collaboration on Indonesia-Korea related issues. So in closing, I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere appreciation to Professor Dr. Nook, Dr. Nawawi, and all of his staff members again for your expertise and efforts as you help build this webinar today. It would not have been possible without your cooperation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bay. And now, please let me invite Professor Dr. Trinuka Pujiastuti, the Deputy for Social Science and Humanities of LIPI, for her closing remarks.
Thank you, Mbak Indah. It's a great honor to hear you all, Indonesia and South Korea CHEPA webinar on 22nd March. I do enjoy this seminar, this webinar. I hope you all also enjoy it. Since this morning, I heard that how important G2G or government to government or business to business, as well as people to people meeting, connection and collaborations between two countries, Indonesia and South Korea. I would like to take this opportunity to express my great appreciation to Korean foundations, especially to Pak Bay and our LIPI team under Dr. Nawawi and team. It's very great to arrange this international seminar. Of course, thank you very much also to all speakers, moderator, and also to our head of research center. As you know, social sciences and humanities and LIPI, we have 5 research centers. They are research center for politics, economic, populations, culture and society, and the last one is regional studies. They are actually will be a part of these collaborations. And of course, thank you very much all these doing this participants from Indonesia and Korea, especially to Pak Gogot from Korea Embassy, that's really try to help us to make it possible also. I really enjoy the international webinar, which actually also the kick-off our relations, LIPI and Korean foundations. As Pak Bay said, it's only the starting point. After now, I do hope we will have a thematic webinar to deepening many issues on politics, economy, population, culture, as well as climate change disaster, which be held by LIPI and Korea Foundation. And of course, we also invite many institutions, university or other kind of institution. So I would like to stress that LIPI's attention to contribute to strengthen the cooperations between Indonesia and Korea. And this webinar which discuss enhance Indonesia and South Korea's Korea connectivity. It expected to become a strategic foundations in building long-term cooperation. This webinar indicates that increasing people-to-people connectivity between Indonesia and Korea is very important, as well as government to government and private to private or business to business. I believe that optimizing the benefit the cooperations, including facing various external challenges, will require strong research support to design sound research-based policy. It's a very important for Indonesia's government. I hope this will happen between Korean foundations and LIPI, which involve various academic institutions, including university. LIPI is ready to become a hub in these collaborations. Therefore, it's timely to explore science cooperations between IPSK LIPI, Social Sciences and Humanities LIPI, and Korea Foundations, and must be directed toward clear objective. I hope that in the near future, there will be a constructive meeting to jointly plan, follow up the activities. Ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you for all your coming, and I do hope we will meet soon in another webinar. Now, I formally close this event and wishing you a successful and healthy. Thank you very much.
Terima kasih Ibu Nuka. Ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up the whole agenda we have for the international webinar Enhancing Indonesia-South Korea Connectivity today. It's been our great honor to host this event, and on behalf of the organizing committee, personally, I would like to apologize for any mistakes and inconvenient matter during this webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today throughout the whole agenda. Nomu kamsahamnida. Good afternoon. Please stay safe and see you on the next occasion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Andrew.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Professor Andrew.
교수님 감사합니다. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Panuka.
Thank you.
Mas Agus.
Thank you
Ya, Mas
all.
Nawawi.
Thank you all. Dr. Noi.
Terima kasih semuanya.
Thank you. Congratulations ya for organizer.
Thank you, Mas Heri.
Makasih Mas Agus. Keren moderatornya.
Good luck, Mas Nawawi. Thank you.